All sports, all the time.
There's heroes and there's legends. Heroes get remembered. Legends never die.
This is the Spoken Podcast.
Hold your ears, folks. It's showtime.
I'm your host, Lance Twidwell.
Man, that kid, he can ball, man. He can ball.
Touchdown, Kansas City!
Patrick freaking Mahomes, baby!
Let's talk some sports, because that's what we're here to do.
You are tuned in to The Spoken.
This is the Spoken Podcast. I'm your host, Lance Twidwell, here inside the Starcade Media Studios with my guy, Trevor Twidwell.
What's good?
Episode 228 is in full swing, full motion. We're so happy to be here with you and for you to be here with us. Whether you are live streaming, whether you are podcasting, or whether you are YouTubing, we want to thank you so much for taking the time to be with us in this time as we have another jam-packed show for you guys today when it comes to all things Chiefs, all things NFL, all things anything you guys want to talk to today, because you guys know for the last couple of months now we've been making sure this thing gets as interactive as possible, and you guys have not disappointed us one bit, one iota, and we appreciate you guys so much for being in the live chats with us. We hope that continues today because we'd love to hear from you guys. We'd love to get your questions, your concerns, your takes, whatever you guys have for us. We hope we get that from you guys today. And for the first time in a couple of weeks, we got my guy Trevor back today. I know I did a solo show last week. I was exhausted from training camp out there with Shaggy, Shane, and Clay Windler. Finally got a chance to now pair back up with Trev so we can get more thoughts, more takes, more opinions than just my own. We had a fun-filled time last week, though, guys. And again, everybody that joined me in the chat last week, thank you guys so much. And if you've not done it already, go ahead and hit our YouTube video. Or if you go to our YouTube channel, hit subscribe, hit the like buttons, notifications, but most importantly, get in the comments. Let us know what you guys are talking about. We'll get you guys up on the screen. We'll talk about what you guys want to talk about. We'll bring up whatever you want to bring up, and we will answer your questions as best and as diligently as we possibly can, as humanly possible here at the Spoken Podcast. Like I said, guys, we have a jam-packed show. We're going to get to you guys a little bit in the Speak It segment. We're going to be handing out some L's. We got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, Trevor, how you doing? Are you glad to be back? Yes or no?
Glad to be back, man. I'd much rather be here than working overtime.
Yeah, those are never the fun days. I totally understand it. And, you know, there's going to be some people that are going to be working overtime on the Chiefs' defense this year, because it looks like the Chiefs are going to be a little empty-handed when it comes to veteran pass rushers, even more so now that we've heard the news. According to Ian Rappaport yesterday, the NFL has suspended Charles Omenihu of the Kansas City Chiefs for 6 games, for the first 6 games of the regular season of the 2023 season, for violating the NFL's personal conduct policy. He is eligible to participate in all preseason practices and games, but will miss a third of the first third of the season. And we knew about this. The Chiefs knew about this before the Chiefs even signed Charles Omenihu. I believe they signed him in, was it late March, early April? Yeah. But in January of this year, Charles Omenihu was, according to The Athletic, was arrested in San Jose, California for suspicion of a misdemeanor domestic violence, according to San Jose Police Department, an incident that could lead to a suspension, which it obviously did, at some point next season for violating the league's personal conduct policy. The local district attorney's office is deciding whether to file charges. I don't believe they ultimately did at that time, Trevor. But the league suspended Chiefs linebacker Willie Gay Jr. for 4 games last season as a punishment for violating the personal conduct policy following an incident in January of 2022 when he was arrested in Overland Park, Kansas, and booked for a Class B misdemeanor criminal damage to property charge of less than $1,000. So although these situations are similar, they're also very different in where they happen, when they happen, things of that nature. But we knew a suspension was coming. Yeah. Trevor, as soon as we saw this signing, we were like, hey, this is great, because Charles Omenihu is a budding, young, flourishing player in this league.
I'm excited about this.
I was very excited about it, but we knew there was going to be a suspension. We just didn't. What we didn't know, because we knew that was inevitable, we didn't know how long he'd be gone. Yeah. Based upon the Willie Gay suspension last season, I was anticipating that Omenihu was going to get 2 to 4 games. Which is why Omenihu was going to be my pick to lead the team in sacks. I was going to hold that prediction for when we were going to give our predictions. I was going to say Omenihu would lead the team in sacks this year. I was very much high on him. But now, missing a third of the season, that's not going to be my prediction. I'm going to have to probably change that one. And it also, puts a lot of pressure on rookies like Felix Anudike-Uzomah to perform immediately. But it also does a few other things, which is what I want to focus on. Because, like, again, this shouldn't shock anybody. The Chiefs knew this was coming. We knew this was coming. Now we just react to what this does to the team. And that is where I want to kind of settle in a little bit with everybody. And, like, again, guys, if you're listening to this, you're watching this, go ahead and hit the chat and let us know what you guys are talking about. And we will get to your comments in a minute. But Trevor and I are going to expand on this just a little bit. So ride with me as I give you guys my take as to what this is going to do to the team for the first 6 games of the season. For one, it swings a door of opportunity that was already cracked wide open for the Chiefs to add more to their pass rush. And second, it gives Chris Jones a ton more leverage. And I know that's going to confuse a lot of you guys, but I will get to that in a second. But I want to start at the top here. The Chiefs have made it clear and evident through their draft picks since 2018 they plan to build their pass rush up with young, cheap talent every single year. But as we've seen over that same period of time, the Chiefs consistently add cheap veteran pass rushers to balance the equation. We saw Terrell Suggs, Melvin Ingram, Carlos Dunlap. We've seen names throughout this time of guys that they've added in the market for low amount of money in contracts, 1-year deals to help these young guys develop. The Chiefs have to do that more now than they ever did before. Losing Frank Clark at this point shouldn't be viewed as a massive loss. But as it stands, with the way things are for the Chiefs, it unfortunately is. The Chiefs had a need for a veteran edge rusher before the Omenihu suspension was handed down. Now it's a glaring need. And with Yannick Ngakoue now signing with the Bears, Carlos Dunlap looking like he's enjoying retirement without actually being retired officially, the Chiefs have one real choice left to make, Trevor. They got to go get Justin Houston. I've petitioned this for a couple of years now, and I have never meant it more than I do now because he's never been more of a need than he is now. I put these thoughts out here yesterday, immediately after the Omenihu suspension, and I had more than a few people tell me that Houston is washed, Trevor. For those that think that Justin Houston is washed, since 2019, Justin Houston has more sacks than Joey Bosa, Leonard Floyd, DeForest Buckner, Khalil Mack, Daniel Hunter, Carlos Dunlap, Bud Dupree, and Von Miller. And in that span, Trevor, he only missed 5 games. Sacks in last season in 2022, Justin Houston had 9.5 sacks. Folks are also suggesting that the Chiefs shouldn't go with Justin Houston, but instead should go with the Jadeveon Clowney. I guess people forgot that Clowney hasn't been good at football in years, but I'll go ahead and do the comparisons anyway. Since 2019, Clowney has missed 13 more games than Houston. Houston has 19 more sacks, 17 more pressures, and 8 more tackles for loss.
Who's the washed one, though?
Yeah, Houston might be 4 years older than Clowney, but Clowney has struggled to be an effective player in his 20s. What makes anyone think he's going to turn a corner now that he's nearing 31?
Right.
The Chiefs need to mend the fence. They need to bury the hatchet and bring back the future Hall of Famer Justin Houston so it can all end where it began. It's a common sense move. I know people think it's so far-fetched, but it's actually not, Trev.
Yeah.
It's actually not. Because he's still an effective player. It's good business for both sides because, again, they both would benefit off the relationship because Justin Houston could potentially win his first ring of his career. The full circle aspect for the fans of getting a guy back that everyone adored and everybody loved 10 years ago, 5 to 10 years ago, because he was on the team as late as 2018.
Ring of Honor guy, possibly.
He's a Ring of Honor guy. He's third. I think he's third all time in Chiefs sacks, third or fourth. I think him and Neil Smith are right next to each other. I think he has like 77 career sacks with the Chiefs. He had maybe the most historic season in the history of the Chiefs with 21.5 sacks.
Yeah.
Unbelievable season. Got himself paid. Has had an awesome career since leaving the Chiefs with multiple franchises, with the Colts and with the Ravens.
Yep. One of the few remaining players that has over 100 sacks in his career left in the NFL right now.
Yeah, he's definitely older than Clowney, but you can't tell me that Clowney's been the more effective player. But I will defend some people. I saw a lot of people finally start to get on board with this idea of Justin Houston coming to Kansas City. Because people now know that it's not just about the name recognition. It's about recognizing the game within the name. The guy still has plenty of game. It isn't like I'm just doing this or saying this or suggesting this because it's a feel-good story. That is a part of it. Right. And that's something I would very much like to see as a Chiefs fan, as a Justin Houston fan. But it's because of the fact this guy can play an actual role for this team, especially while Charles Omenihu is out for 6 games. That is something you're going to absolutely need. Sure, FAU and George Karlaftis and B.J. Thompson and other guys like that can start to fill that area of need, and I'm all for that, and I hope they do. I hope they're the ones that actually lead the way. But what I want to see is the Chiefs be able to go and spend little amounts of money to go get a guy like Justin Houston, because Yannick Ngakoue is 28, 29 years old. He only got a 1-year, $10.5 million deal. I don't know the guarantees on that, but a guy that's in his late 20s getting a 1-year 10.5, a guy that's in his mid-30s is going to get a 1-year 4.5, 5.5. The Chiefs would absolutely do that in a heartbeat for a guy with the services of Justin Houston. And again, I said, remove the name, remove the past, and it's a common sense move because the Chiefs have, without question, went after. They traded for Melvin Ingram. They went and signed Carlos Dunlap. And no offense to those guys, and I like those guys a lot, and I'd love to bring back Carlos Dunlap. Neither one of them are as good as Justin Houston, especially currently.
Right.
So I say without a doubt, man, you want to just as a depth piece. He would be a depth piece even if you brought him here with Charles Omenihu in place playing week 1. But now he can play more of an important role. He can just back up a George Karlaftis. He can back up an FAU. He can play on third downs, things of that nature. People say, what about the scheme? It's different because he's played for 4-3 defenses since he left the Chiefs. He plays as D-end. 3-4 defenses, outside linebackers are essentially the same exact position. It doesn't really change what the area of attack is for him. It's going after the quarterback. So it doesn't matter if he's in a 3-4, 4-3. He's going to play on the outside. He's going to rush. He's going to be an edge rusher.
And you guys just think he forgot how to play in different schemes? Like that's silly, man.
So that's where I want to stop on that first point, Trevor, because I think that's where I want to get your reaction first and foremost. I'm assuming you agree with me on this, but if you don't, is there another name out there you think that makes sense? Because regardless of who the name is, the Chiefs are going to have to add somebody. Yeah. You can't let it sit like this for a month and a half. You're going to have to add depth. And I was saying before we knew the significance of or the number of games that Omenihu was going to miss, the Chiefs needed to add depth. So now it's even more imperative. What are your thoughts? Do you think Justin Houston's the guy? Do you think it's realistic? Just give me your general viewpoint on this whole take.
I mean, at this point, yeah. I mean, I really wanted to see Yannick Ngakoue. I liked him a lot, but he got, I forget who swooped him up. Was it Bears? That's right, yeah. They're just swooping up everybody. I really wanted to get Yannick Ngakoue, but just because he's a little younger, still a solid player in my mind. I still think he's got a lot left in the tank. But I think at this point, man, I think Justin Houston makes the most sense. He's still a beloved guy here. I don't think there was no real beef between the fans. That was more of an internal feud between management of the team and of the organization and him. There was a bridge burnt there, and we've talked about this on the show ad nauseum, man, for sure. But I mean, you can't. The production and the consistency of this guy's career is damn near unmatched between guys. Especially in guys that he even played along. Like you named the names. Yeah. You know what I mean? With the Von Millers and the numbers in comparison over the last several years. Yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't even know who else is out there, man. I mean, there's not many guys. We could talk about Jadeveon Clowney, but that guy's had so many chances. To really blossom and become something. But once he would start to look good, he would get hurt. There's always something with him. It's not like he doesn't have the talent. I think he does, but the guy cannot stay healthy for the life of him, and he can't really put together a strong streak of good football without either getting hurt or just having a dry spell. You know what I mean? So Justin Houston makes the most sense. I think this is the urgency is there now with Omenihu's. This 6 games is a lot, man. A lot can happen in 6 weeks. Other injuries can happen. So much can happen in 6 weeks in the NFL. We can even have an entirely different situation on our hands by the time Omenihu's back. And that's a long time for him to sit and think. I know he'll be practicing, but that's a long, extra extended time off of football for a guy to get reacclimated once he's even back. So, once he's in the flow of things, it'll be about week 9, 10, once he's really kind of back in the flow of who he is.
Which I know some people, by the way, have said.
That's tough to just walk back into.
Yeah, and some people said this can actually be a blessing in disguise, which I actually tend to agree with in this regard.
Possibly.
That he'll be fresh towards the end
That's
of the
optimistic, and I think that's the best way to look at it. Yeah. Because that's wishful thinking, and I think we all hope that's the case. Yeah, sure. But football's not a game you can just take 6 weeks off and just come back in and just, boom, you're that guy. Which I'm not saying it can't happen, but likely this is such a grueling sport, and it's such a sport you have to kind of catch up to get up to game speed. This is why a lot of things happen even in the preseason. A lot of injuries happen because guys' bodies aren't really battle ready yet. So listen, man, I tend to be optimistic too, and I think he's going to be great. I like him a lot. I love this signing. I like the system he came from, and I think he had a career year last year with the Niners, a coming out season, if you will. So I'm excited about him. It does suck 6 games, but this is a kick in the ass to the organization to figure out the Chris Jones situation. Obviously, priority number 1, get that taken care of, because now he's that much more valuable and that much more important to have him on the field. Granted, he's going to play this year, but keeping him happy is a big deal. You know what I mean? That's a pillar on this roster. A guy that's been here and won 2 rings with us so far and has been a massive contributor to both, especially the second one. So getting him taken care of and then bringing in some veterans, man. But outside of Justin Houston, I really don't know who's even available as far as guys that I believe, outside of bringing Carlos Dunlap back, I think would be the only other one I think on my mind makes the most sense. A guy that just won a ring with us, knows the system. Still, depending if he wants to play football, I think he seemed like he was kind of done after this past year. It really seemed that way.
And it seemed like that right now.
Yeah, it did. So, I mean, I haven't heard any rumors about him being interested in coming back to playing football. If he was going to come back and play football, I would immediately think the Chiefs would be atop that list.
Yeah.
I love his skill set. I love the guy with the height that can bat balls. But man, bringing Justin Houston back would be an incredible thing.
And here, I'm going to say one more thing about this, and then we're going to move to my second point about what the Omenihu suspension does for the Chiefs and what they have to take care of. The whole Justin Houston and the burning of the bridge and him and the Chiefs having this issue. Right. Think about how long ago that was. It was so long ago that not only the Chiefs not won their first Super Bowl with Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs have won 10 playoff games since that. Look at how different the team is. The coaching staff is different. You got Matt Nagy back. Eric Bieniemy's gone.
Oh, yeah, it's
Steve Spagnuolo wasn't even the defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's so much difference now, and the Chiefs have won so much that I feel like the bygones got to be let the bygones be bygones thing would be so much easier.
We're an entirely different entity at this point.
Yeah, because you've won so many. Like I said, you've won 2 Super Bowls since then.
Yeah, it's
like there should be no hardship because that era is it feels like so long ago that it shouldn't even matter. There should be no relevance to it. And to be honest with you, if we heard that the Chiefs signed Justin Houston right now, if we got the report from Ian Rappaport or Adam Schefter or any of these other guys, you really think that anyone on the shows, on these national shows, even bring it up, let alone go, there was bad blood once? No one's doing that. Because it's such a non-story now.
Yeah.
It's not something. Now, with Tyreek Hill, it'd be different if, in 5 years from now, Tyreek Hill, is cheap, and the Chiefs are maybe considering the fact of bringing him back.
That bridge is burnt.
That bridge would be burnt because of the fact he's been out there on social media, on his podcast, saying stuff, causing a stir and causing a rift between him and the fans. Justin Houston hasn't done that. Fans don't feel that way towards Justin Houston like they feel towards Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
He's not out there saying stuff like being slanderous towards the franchise. Justin Houston may have felt a certain way. Maybe he still does. But when it comes to is it good business or is it bad business, it is clearly on the left side of this. It's clearly good business for both sides. Both sides would clearly benefit off the relationship, even if it's just a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
It's something that gives Justin Houston a chance to solidify, in my opinion, a Hall of Fame career, and it helps the Chiefs solidify being the first team in 20 years to repeat as Super Bowl champions. Now, my second point in all this, in my opinion, is the most important part of this. There's Chris Jones. Now, you might be asking me, what does this suspension and this situation really have to do with Chris Jones and his extension? Everything. Mm-hmm. I tweeted it out this moments after the Omenihu news came down, and I posted, quote unquote, Chris Jones has an insane amount of leverage right now. Oh, did that piss people off, Trev? That got people so pissed off at me that they were saying stuff like, no, he doesn't. How does this help him at all? He still has to play regardless of whether Omenihu's playing or not. This doesn't help his extension. This doesn't hurt his extension. Look, most, if not all of us assume that Chris Jones will report to camp at some point with an extension in place or not. Hopefully with. And just about everyone assumes that he will play week 1. Mm-hmm. Everyone. It's like 99.9% of people believe, okay, week 1, Chris Jones is playing football. Mostly because we know him to be a team guy. He wants to continue to win. But also because he would lose upwards of $1 million per game missed. And that's a lot more than $50K per practice he's fined for every time he's not at camp. But what if Chris Jones sits out games, Trevor? Are we going to sit here and pretend like that's not a possibility?
Oh, it's a possibility.
What if the Chiefs don't get this deal done and CJ says, good luck, and hangs back when the season begins? Folks are coming at me saying this doesn't help his leverage at all, but CJ can sit out, Trevor. Think about what would happen. He could sit out and leave them with who in their interior defensive line? A rookie and and Derek Nottie? Turk Wharton, who's just coming back from an ACL injury? Sure, he'd be giving up $1 million per game, which is why I don't expect him to sit out. But if he threatens to, are the Chiefs willing to take the risk knowing how much the 1 seed matters? Think about how much dominance the Chiefs have had in the playoffs all these years. You don't think having the 1 seed, 3 times in the last 5 years hasn't helped them dramatically? Having home field advantage in the AFC Championship over the last 5 years hasn't helped them dramatically? I doubt the Chiefs would be willing to take that risk. Plus, there's something that no one else seems to consider. I've heard no one else talk about it. Jones can point to the fact that unlike any of these other veteran pass rushers over the last few years the Chiefs have had, he's the only one that's not been suspended and or dealt with injuries. He is available every single week for the most part. So his availability can be used as leverage as well. So whether people want to accept it or not, whether the Chiefs want to accept it or not, Chris Jones is an absolute need for the Chiefs to win a Super Bowl this season, without question. And knowing how important the 1 seed is, the Chiefs cannot afford to allow the risk of not having their best defensive player on the field at any point, especially to kick the season off when they are going up against a hungry, driven Lions team coming into Arrowhead trying to shock the world. If the Lions knew there's no Chris Jones going into that matchup, do you not think they're even more confident of pulling that off? This is what it comes down to. The Chiefs need to pay Chris Jones what he's worth now because his worth is only going to go up based upon what he means for this team. And with the Menahu missing a third of the season, it only adds to CJ's value. So the longer this is going to go, the more his number is going to rise. You got to pay 95. Trev, what are your thoughts on this? You believe that? You agree with what I'm saying about this, that actually adds leverage to Chris Jones, or do you think it doesn't really change anything?
Well, when it comes to leverage, man, it's not always 100% leverage on one side or the other. There's a balancing act. There's a bit of leverage on both sides of certain communication and when things are being negotiated. I think there's leverage. I think the Chiefs still have the majority of the leverage, if I'm being honest. I mean, this is the franchise that has built itself. I think this is the franchise. Granted, he's a big part of that, of the building process, no doubt. But it only hurts himself to lose money. That's not leverage for him. I think Chris Jones 100% will be playing week 1, whether he gets the extension or not, because I think that's just who Chris Jones has always been. He's always been a team-first guy, and I think he's going to do what's right by the Chiefs, and I think he's going to do what's right by him and his personal brand of being a team-first guy. I don't think he wants to diminish. This is my take on Chris Jones, what I think of him as a person. I don't think he's going to do that. I don't think he would do that. He doesn't seem like the guy that would do that. Granted, things can change. Absolutely, and money is a big factor in emotional decisions. Most, if not all, decisions are based on emotions. But I do think whether he gets this extension or not, he is 100% going to be on the field in week 1 because he knows the value, and I think the Chiefs understand the value as well. And I think he's going to get an extension. I still think that's going to happen. But do I think the leverage is fully in the side of Chris Jones? No, I still think the Chiefs as an organization have more leverage. Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and their little circle of friends, I think they know what they need and who they are for each other. And I think the camaraderie between these guys in this locker room that have won 2 championships together and have been to 3 Super Bowls together, there's a communication, I'm sure, between those guys as well. So I think they know what they need to do. But as far as Chris Jones really holding out, it is 100% a possibility. I am not of the mind that that's something that's going to happen and or something he's going to do. I think Chris Jones will be a true, as he says, chief for life kind of guy. A guy that's a team first kind of guy. He understands his leadership role on this defense. He is the Patrick Mahomes of this defense. He's the guy that that rallies the troops. He is the most important piece on the defense, and we know we need him. And I think we will take care of him, but I think he understands, and I think he knows that because we've already done it in the past. We have a proven track record of taking care of him. We paid him handsomely already. But I will say this: I don't think anyone's paying him what he's wanting. That report, like I even tweeted out, I said I think he's going to budge. If anyone's going to budge, it's going to be Chris Jones before the Chiefs. The Chiefs have more leverage in my mind as far as the balancing act goes, as far as what's going to happen in the future. Do I think he sits out games and loses millions of dollars? No. No, I don't. I don't think he's. Le'Veon Bell tried that and did that, and it didn't work out for him. It didn't. He got paid, obviously, but that was a whole situation. He ended up leaving the team that paid him. It was not. It never really worked out for him as far as his football career goes. It was things were never the same for him. He thought the grass was greener, and it wasn't. So I think Chris Jones understands this. I think Chris Jones will be a team first guy. I think Chris Jones will be on the field when we need him. He understands that this season's already going to be a challenge with the AFC conference adding that much more talent this season, and we're at the top, and people are going to be wanting to come for us and gunning for us even that much more harder. He understands his role on this defense. So I think the majority of the leverage still remains on the Chiefs side of things.
And my thing is that you look at the way this offseason has played out, going back 2 months, we're thinking, okay, it's a foregone conclusion. Chris is getting his extension. The Chiefs are going to make a move. They're probably going to add a wide receiver. They're going to add somebody else after they get the cap relief from Chris Jones' contract extension. And then you fast forward to 2 months now, from June to now, and I didn't think we'd be here. I didn't think we were going to be sitting here. Now,
I thought it'd be done by now too.
It's up to interpretation because we don't really know what is and what isn't. We don't know if it's because Chris Jones' side is holding back and is just demanding, more money.
I don't have his personal number.
Yeah, it's a report of, it's $30 million a year he wants.
Yeah, he ain't getting that, man.
Well, here's the thing. I've heard a lot of people say that, and I understand why people are saying that. But the real snag in all this, if you're asking me, is what the majority of contract extensions are snagged on. It's guaranteed dollars and years.
Security. So
that's the whole thing with Orlando Brown.
Yeah.
You look at the Chiefs. The Chiefs are willing to, on paper, to pay him a lot of money. It was going to be, $25-30 million a year, and people were saying, well, he's not worth that. But in the Chiefs' language, they were structuring it as, we're going to pay you that, but he was never going to see the back end of that deal. It was coming down to guaranteed dollars and guaranteed years, which is why Orlando Brown turned down both offers.
It's a little different. Chris Jones already had a pretty massive contract with the Chiefs at one point, $20+ million a year.
The difference, though, when you brought up the Le'Veon Bell situation and Chris Jones sitting out just like Le'Veon Bell did, is that Le'Veon Bell sitting out for the Steelers didn't nearly impact the Steelers as much as it would impact the Chiefs because
he thought it would.
You thought it would.
Yeah.
But being a running back in a league where it was becoming more pass heavy.
Well, he was arguably the best running back in the league at that time.
Yes, but I'm saying that at that time, even with him being as good as he was, you still had, I think Antonio Brown was still on the team at that time.
But I'm saying the market at that time for running backs was pretty high. Running backs were getting paid pretty good. That's why he held out.
And I get it. I'm saying, though, that Le'Veon Bell he didn't have the impact or value to his franchise as much as Chris Jones does for the Chiefs.
I agree. Yeah.
Even with Patrick Mahomes on the other side of the ball. Yeah. My worry, and I'm not worried about it too much yet, but it's with this situation still lingering the way it is, I'm starting to have a little bit of a concern that the Chiefs are, we have Patrick Mahomes, so we're good. You still have to pay some people what they're worth. And again, when it comes to the leverage aspect of this with Charles Omenihu now being out for a third of the season, Chris Jones becomes that much more imperative. So paying him and getting this done now, getting him in football shape now, getting him in training camp now, makes him that much more effective to be able to carry even more of the load because, as we know, Omenihu was brought in here to replace who? Frank Clark. Frank Clark was a guy that was pivotal for the Chiefs to win a Super Bowl, yes or no? So Charles Omenihu is still going to be viewed as that going into the postseason. But there's still what we call the meantime. And the meantime is Chris Jones now has even more so on him because now you lose that veteran presence. It's supposed to be an upgrade of Frank Clark, and now you're relying on all these young dudes. Karlaftis will probably take a step forward, but we don't know yet what he actually is. We don't know what Karlaftis is going to be. We all like Felix. We think he's going to be a stud, but he's a rookie. And most rookies, even T.J. Watt himself only had 7 sacks his rookie year. Right. So unless we're thinking Felix is going to become the next T.J. Watt, at best, he'll probably have 7 sacks this season. Who else are you relying on the pass rush? Mike Gaina right now is a calf strain. We don't know when he's going to be back. You have Turk, who's finally coming back, and I'm glad to see the Turk's back.
Yeah.
We have Derek Nottie. I'm glad he's back. I'm big on Keandre Coburn. But Keandre Coburn is going to rely on who to develop quicker? Chris Jones. So this all is centered around Chris Jones. Now, there is a relief factor in all this because of the fact that, as I've stated on the show and I've stated on Twitter and everywhere else, X, I'm sorry, don't sue me, Elon. The secondary and the linebacking room is going to be nasty.
Yeah.
This secondary is going to be so much better than it was last season, and they were really good last season, especially as the year progressed and like week 12 and beyond. This secondary got so good so quick. I don't know if you watched the new franchise, the first episode yet, but they focus on like Brian Cook and some of the young bucks and like how they all like from day one just unified.
On Tranquil's addition, all those guys too.
For the linebacker round, I'm talking like in particular like the safeties and cornerbacks.
Yeah.
Man, these young dudes you could just tell they get it. So I know that's going to take that's going to put, add some relief to all this with all the uncertainty of what's going to be up front. But at the end of the day, you still have to have the up front because what was one of the saving graces for the Chiefs defense last season? They could get to the quarterback. Mm-hmm. They were second in the league in sacks. And if it wasn't for the Eagles having a historic season, the Chiefs would have led by a wide margin in sacks last season. Most teams that lead the league get about 50 to 60 sacks. Chiefs had, 55? So they more than likely in any other normal year would have led the league in sacks. They led the league in quarterback hits. They were like second in pressures. They were an elite pass rushing group.
Balls.
Now we have a lot of questions. We're confident that these guys are going to be really good. Joe Colen leading the way on the defensive line. Steve Spagnuolo, assigning blitzes and things of that nature. I think they're going to be fine. But you can't afford to start the season on the rocks. Because, again, the rest of the AFC is doing everything they can to snag that one seed and make sure the AFC Championship doesn't go through Arrowhead for a 6th consecutive season. Not having Chris Jones there, not having Charles Omenihu there, those are problems I don't think you can just shake.
I feel like I see it as Chris Jones. If this was like his first big contract with the Chiefs, and we hadn't won multiple Super Bowls already together, been to 3+. He has a relationship with a lot of these guys in this locker room. Do you think Chris Jones, back to your point about him possibly sitting out games, do you think he's willing to? Because I think it would. I think it would affect the relationship between him and obviously Pat, Kelsey, a lot of the guys he's close to on the defense. Do you think that they would look at him a little sideways if he still under contract, still should be on the field, wants his money, and I get it, but hasn't gotten it yet from the team? Do you think guys would start looking at him a little different, seeing that Kelsey's already kind of been a team-friendly guy and has made things work and has always been there on the field? And the leaders of this team that have been the constants, guys like Chris Jones, Kelsey, and Pat, do you think that would kind of do you think Chris Jones is that kind of guy that would risk maybe causing a rift between him and the other leaders on the team? I
don't want to speak for Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce or Chris Jones. What I will say, but I'm going to carefully say this. I do believe that Patrick Mahomes and Chris Jones took less so guys like Chris Jones can make their money for a few reasons. One,
or Orlando Brown, and he still didn't get paid.
But the Chiefs did offer Orlando Brown.
Sure.
He just didn't get the guaranteed dollars. What I'm saying is this. The Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce know even better than we do how imperative Chris Jones is for their success.
Sure.
So that is why I believe that one of the biggest reasons why those two guys in particular took less was for Chris Jones to get paid, because unlike Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, Chris Jones isn't going to get these out of football. He's not going to ever get the out of football money these two guys are going to get and are getting.
Of course.
The endorsements, the commercials, Saturday Night Live.
I mean,
he's even close.
He's pretty marketable, but yes,
it's
not
even
to
close.
that level.
Yeah, those are two of the most marketable players in the league right now.
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is I think those guys saw the big picture. Like, look, if we take a little less on the football side, we're going to make just as much out there for the rest of our lives, being so marketable and being legends of the game. Chris Jones, we need to get him as paid as humanly possible.
Chris Jones plays for plays a position that's a highly paid position as well.
Exactly, and that's the point, is that you see, okay, look at it like this.
$30 million, god damn.
Okay, but here's the thing. Here's the funny thing about it, is that $30 million sounds so ginormous for a guy that's not a quarterback, right? But what's funny about it is that Aaron Donald, remember a year ago when Aaron Donald got this extension? Mm-hmm. It was almost $32 million a year he was making on this extension. How many people did you hear say Aaron Donald wasn't worth that money?
Sure.
Not a single person. Everyone's like, oh, the Rams had to do this. They convinced him to stay out of retirement. He's their guy. And what did we all do before the season started? What did we all do, Trevor? We all predicted the Rams to either win their division or go deep in the playoffs or be a wild card team. I said they were going to be the best wild card team of that year. And what happened? The Rams faltered, and everyone goes, "Oh, Well, it's because they paid Aaron Donald. No, it's because their offensive line was horrendous. They lost Andrew Whitworth in the offseason, and Matt Stafford got hurt. You really believe that Aaron Donald wasn't worth that money, even with his injuries and the team being that bad? Because I guarantee you he was. The point. Go ahead.
No. I'm saying no one's doubting that Aaron Donald was worth that, but that team wasn't trying to build a dynasty. That team was not. That team was all in team for maybe a year or two.
Right.
That's not what the Chiefs are. Chiefs already have 2 chips under their belt. We're trying to continue this for the next decade plus.
My point I'm making, though, is that Chris Jones isn't asking for Aaron Darnold money.
Sure.
He's asking for millions less.
Close, but a couple million less.
Yeah, but okay, but the couple million less can be a difference because I'm hearing people say, oh, 30 million is too much, but 26, 27, yeah, sure. It's the same equivalence if you really think about it when it comes to Aaron Donald.
I'm more on like the 24-ish.
But here's the thing. Who right now, Trevor, for the next 3 years do you have more confidence in? Chris Jones or Quinnen Williams?
Chris Jones, but Quinn Williams is trailing right. He's Chris Jones reincarnate.
He's a baller, but what do we all know? Quinnen Williams hasn't helped lead his team to multiple Super Bowls. It's a factor.
There's a lot more that goes into that than this.
Okay,
I think skill-wise, he's pretty close to Chris Jones.
I would pick Chris Jones in a heartbeat over Quinnen
right now.
Williams.
Yes,
I love Quinnen Williams.
Right now, yes, but I'm saying that the context matters as far as what team he's on.
You can make the case right now that Chris Jones is the best defensive player in the league. I don't know if he is.
I would still take Nick Bosa.
Guys like that. You can make like Pat
Miles
Surtain's
Garrett.
up there, Miles Garrett's up there. Like there's other guys out there that maybe T.J. Watt.
Sure.
My point is he's in that conversation. When you
Of course.
talk about the 5-10 best defenders in the league, Chris Jones' name is in that mix somewhere.
Of course.
So my point is that if you're in the mix with Aaron Donald and T.J. Watt and Miles Garrett and these other guys, you need to get paid like these guys. You know what? Nick Bosa. No one's talking about it, but he's been sitting out of training camp because he hasn't gotten paid yet. Does anyone think it's crazy if he gets $30 million? No, because Nick Bosa's he's an edge rusher and he's 25. But what Chris Jones is doing is showing no signs of tailing off. If you can get a guy at his age, at 29 years old, who just turned 29, for the next 3 years, no signs of tailing off, would it be crazy to you to think, Trevor, Chris Jones gets 30-plus sacks over the next 3 years?
No.
And if you're going to tell me right now that wouldn't help the Chiefs. Okay, if you have to pay him $30 million a year, but you know that the Chiefs are going to be in contention for the next 3 years simply because you have him on the roster on the other side. Because you just said 5 minutes ago, he's the Patrick Mahomes of this defense. Mm-hmm. Would that not be worth it? The Chiefs have to understand you can play it cheap at cornerback. You can play it cheap at other positions.
We are right now.
But when it comes to pass rush, you can't play it cheap. You can't say, hey, Chris, Quinnen Williams has done an eighth of what you've done in your career. He just got $24 million a year. We're going to give you the same. I would laugh them out of the room, and I love Brett Veach, and I think he's incredible. The Fleece 5 Veach season stuff that I've come up with, and I think it's great, and it's all fun. You can't fleece Chris Jones. You can't finagle him. At the end of the day, it's brass tacks, and when it comes to the question you had about Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, at the end of the day, they're still getting paid buku dollars.
But my point with that was when this is feeding into your scenario where Chris Jones is sitting out games.
Yeah.
And he's contributing to possible losses because of his absence.
I think to flip
that will cause a rift.
Yes, but here's the thing: I don't think it would cause the rift you think it would cause. I think it would cause a rift between the Chiefs
front office.
Because they're going to look at them and go, guys, you really don't think he's worth that money? We need him on the field. They're not because look, players are pro player. They're going to be like, we want our guy. Pay him is what I'm saying because I've seen Patrick Mahomes at the press conferences after training camp.
Vouching for him.
Let's get our guy. Let's get him in here. Let's get him in here.
Sure.
It isn't about hey Chris, stop being greedy. It's not about they want to see him get his money.
Yeah.
So I think what it is, the Chiefs have to understand that they don't want to be pissing off the face of their franchise because those are the guys that are making everything look good for them. Travis Kelce's so diplomatic. Patrick Mahomes is diplomatic. These guys are all diplomatic and they have the team's back, but it's only because they believe and have faith that these guys are going to pay the guys they need to pay. Yeah. You don't have to pay Nick Bolton those guys big money like that because you can replace them based upon what? Veach being able to adequately go and get cheap and quality guys in the draft at those positions. But what is one piece, Trevor, and I said this on the show last week and I know you weren't here, what is the one piece, though, that Brett Veach has always had the convenience of building around? Chris Jones. Sure. He was here before Brett Veach even took the job at GM, multiple years before.
He's godfathered in.
Exactly. So there's been a luxury for Brett Veach to say, look, I can build this cheap defense because I have this guy. Well, you have to pay that guy to maintain and make sense of building a cheap defense because what happens, Trevor, if you don't pay Chris Jones? Then you have to change your mentality of how you build your defenses because then you can say, well, now they have to pay L'Jarius Sneed, and I can't fault you. Because I'm somebody that says that they're probably not going to pay L'Jarius Sneed, and I have a whole take on it if we really want to go down that rabbit hole. We don't have to do it for the moment. My point, though, is if you don't pay the guy that is literally what your defense is built around, then how do you make sense of the defense you've built around him? Because that defense now has to change in how you build it. Then you're going to have to start spinning at corner. You're going to start spinning at linebacker uncomfortably. And that's not what the Chiefs want to do. So make sense of it by paying the guy that's in the middle of their defense that's helped you get to 3 Super Bowls in the last 4 years, and then take care of this defense in the way you've been doing it. Because like I said, the question you always have to ask when it comes to Brett Veach and a player, is that player better at his job than Brett Veach is? If he is, pay him. If he's not, then get rid of him and replace him because Brett Veach can adequately replace him. I think Chris Jones is one of the few guys that's just as good, if not better, at his job than Brett Veach is. No offense to Brett, but I think Chris Jones is better at his job than Brett Veach is. I think Patrick Mahomes is better at his job than Brett Veach is.
Chris Jones was here before Brett Veach. Brett Veach changed the culture and brought 2 championships here to Kansas City, so I would give me a little easy on that.
Sure, but Chris Jones was helping lead this team.
He was part of a good rosters before Brett was ever here.
Right, what I'm saying is that we saw the Chiefs go into the playoffs every single year with an average at best quarterback. Why was that? Was it because the offense was so great? No. The defense was elite for 4 straight years. Chris Jones had a say in that.
Sure.
And I'm saying that I think that you have to look at it as this has been your anchor, just like Patrick Mahomes changed everything on the offensive side, and Travis Kelce's been the anchor because he was here before Brett Veach on the offensive side, and you took care of Travis Kelce. Everybody says he's underpaid. That is true in context. But he's also the second highest paid tight end in the league based upon overall value.
Yeah,
so it's not like he's underpaid.
Yeah.
He's underpaid as far as his production. Just it doesn't make sense. He's making less than $25 million a year.
As far as pay for production, it's crazy what he should be getting paid.
If Travis Kelce simply had WR next to his name as opposed to TE, he'd be significantly
tens of
underpaid.
millions more.
Dude, he'd be making $28-30 million a year.
Yeah.
He'd be making what Tyreek Hill's making. Because he's TE, he's so underpaid. But again, he's only making, $2 million less than George Kittle this year.
Right.
So it's not like he's not making insane money. And again, with the off-field stuff, Chris Jones doesn't have that luxury.
There's so much nuance to this situation because, I mean, you got to know that the Brett Veach and his crew know more about the numbers than we do, obviously. So there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. And I have all the faith and trust into Brett Veach to get this situation handled. And Chris Jones is arguably all-time most beloved Chiefs. He's up there in the all-time list as far as the fans goes. The fans would have an absolute riot if Chris Jones doesn't get extended and does more than past this season. I think the fans would have an uproar.
Chris Jones can go down as the greatest defensive lineman the Chiefs have ever had.
Right. So I think that there's a lot of pressure on Brett Veach to get this done. But look, I'm all about the players getting. We're players guys here. We want the guys to get the bag. We want the guys. That's why we weren't that butthurt about DeAndre Hopkins going and chasing the money in Tennessee. Cool, man. Enjoy that. You would have been better off here for football reasons, but for money reasons, cool. Take your bag. But at the same time, when I'm a Chiefs fan at heart, so I always want what's best for this team. So if there's numbers that are if we're gonna pay a guy and those numbers are gonna sabotage the trajectory of this dynastic run that we want to keep afloat, I have a problem with that. And I don't care what name is on the back of the jersey. I want this team to continue its success. Obviously, the name on the back of the jersey that matters most is Patrick Mahomes because that's the golden ticket. But anybody else other than that, as far as the name on the jersey, everyone's expendable at this point, man. Because this we want to, and even Andy Reid himself has talked about we want to build a Patriot style dynastic run. And what were they known for? Letting big names, especially on the defense, walk when they wanted the biggest bag. Belichick was not paying those guys. Yep. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying they're going to take a page out of Belichick's book and not pay Chris Jones, similar to the guys that they've let some big names walk over there. So I don't know, man. I want Chris Jones obviously to be here. I think he will be here. I think this will get figured out because everyone knows how important he is, and he understands he wants to be here as well. He's made it very clear he has no intentions of going anywhere else or not playing this season. Holding out games, I think, is something Chris Jones would just never do, in my personal opinion. But I want what's best for this team, and I trust Brett Veach to make the proper decisions, and I think the negotiations are continuing because of that. I think there's probably a struggle between the numbers, here between these two parties. So hopefully they get it figured out, but I do not think he's going to get $30 million a year. I don't think he's going to get that.
One more point I want to make, and then we're going to get to our chat here because I know that it's starting to fill up. So guys, make sure that right now while you're listening to me, get your questions in, get your takes in, and we're going to address everything you guys are saying in just about 5 minutes. When it comes to what you just said, I could not agree more about the value of a player, or not tripping on it, you know what I mean? Because you can always figure out another way to get around it.
Yep.
That is true. Unless you are a one of one unicorn player. If you want to go back to the Patriots day, Trevor, look at the guys that Bill Belichick was parting ways with. It was guys that he knew he could replace because he was a defensive genius, and we always knew it was more about the scheme rather than the player, right? We knew that it was more about the scheme than the player because Belichick is a defensive genius. That's why no matter who he has on his defense, there's a bunch of no-name guys on that defense, and there's still an elite defense every year. That's because Belichick is a defensive genius. When it comes to Andy Reid is able to scheme offenses and get guys open where he runs the same damn play twice in the Super Bowl and it works both times gloriously. It's because of the scheme. So it makes guys sometimes look better than what they really are. But we see the success difference when you have elite players because Belichick went a decade without winning anything and now is starting to reel into relevance because why? He no longer has Tom Brady.
Sure.
So when it comes to the Chiefs, Andy Reid's having success because why? He has Patrick Mahomes finally. But it takes other pieces to be able to have said success too. And so when it comes to Travis, because what was the biggest reason why I wanted D-Hop or the Chiefs to keep Juju Smith-Schuster, add more to the wide receiver room? Because I said if Travis Kelce goes down, who are they relying on? Could Andy Reid make sense of it and still work on it? Yes, but it's that much more difficult for Patrick Mahomes to get it done every single week.
Yeah, could he scheme McKinnon to get 6 touchdowns in 7 games? Yeah.
And without Travis Kelce? Exactly. Yeah. And on the defensive side, you don't have Chris Jones. Who are you relying on the defensive side to get things done?
Oh, dude, you ain't gotta sell me on the importance of Chris Jones. I get it. I just don't think he's gonna get $30 million. I don't. I think there's a line that the Chiefs have drawn in the sand here.
But I think you have to understand though also that the $30 million is the annual value. That means that also if the Chiefs were to give him a 4-year extension, he has a 5-year deal in totality because of this contract year, which would basically just be null and void at that point with the contract extension in place. The $30 million a year is just the value on the contract. That doesn't mean that he's going to ever see a large majority of that at the end because what the Chiefs will probably do is protect themselves. So that's why the guaranteed dollars is what
Chris Jones is trying to protect himself.
Right, but I'm saying okay. So let's say Chris Jones is
money.
The budging market, the budge between them right now is, or the snag between them is the Chiefs want to guarantee 2 full years. Chris Jones wants that third.
Right.
And it's $75 million that Chris Jones wants. The Chiefs want 70. So they're going to have to meet between like 72 or 73 million in totality just to compromise on both sides. But it's going to have to be how many of those years to have that 72, 73 million in place. And if they can come to a place where they get, 3 years, 73, 74 million of it's guaranteed, Chris Jones then has the incentive to get what he wants because he knows in the next 3 years he's safe. And he can play with the Chiefs, so he's 32, 33 years old, and he can revisit it, or you can get out of the contract and move off of him if he's starting to show signs. But we've seen players at his very position that are not even as good as he is, like Fletcher Cox, Aaron Donald, and guys like that still be effective in their 30s. So what makes us think that Chris Jones isn't going to be the same? So when it comes to he's not going to get it, maybe you're right. Maybe he only gets 27, 28 million as annual value. That shouldn't be the focus. The focus should be how many guaranteed dollars he got and how many guaranteed years does he have. That's why we're not hearing about that. We heard the report that he wants $30 million a year. Mm-hmm. We don't know the actual true importance of the contract, which is the guarantees. I think, and I said in my initial prediction, remember I said I think the Chiefs are going to give him $125 million total, which he'll never see all of that, but I think it's going to be $75 million guaranteed in the first 3 years. First 3 years are fully guaranteed.
Which is what he wants.
Which is $25 million a year. So I'm actually more on your side about the Quinnen Williams thing, but it's the guaranteed dollars that he's looking at. If he can get $25 million
guaranteed year,
and as our guy John Harrison, I'm sure he's going to throw it in the chat today at some point. He said it multiple times. You give him a massive, record-breaking signing bonus. Throw $40 million, so he gets $40 million this year. He'd be an idiot not to sign that. So what I'm saying is, what are we waiting on? Because now we all know the Chiefs have to pay him. It's not you can't trade him now. And you sure as hell can't let him walk after this season, and you can't keep the cap hit as is because you can't add pieces to the equation, and you absolutely have to now, again, especially with Charles Omenihu out. There comes the leverage. You got to pay him. That's the only option the Chiefs have at this point. You can't let him walk after the season because to this point, Trevor, what contingency plan in place is there for Chris Jones leaving? The Chiefs have literally nothing.
Right.
And they have not, they intentionally it almost seems intentional, they haven't drafted a replacement for him. You've seen it. They drafted a potential replacement for Willie Gay. They've drafted a potential replacement for L'Jarius Sneed. They've drafted potential replacements for Frank Clark. You've seen them do that. When and where have they done that with Chris Jones?
It's similar to how we felt about Tyreek, too. Granted, we had the draft, and we did draft Sky Moore, but no one really believed Sky Moore was a replacement for Tyreek. And we got Juju, obviously.
The only reason the Chiefs traded Tyreek, though, is because he asked for it.
Sure.
He wanted more money, and the Chiefs were like, okay, well, we're not going to – we can't – because Tyreek's value to this team was nowhere near what Chris Jones is.
Right.
He was valuable. Don't get me wrong.
The
We
Chiefs,
all were mad.
Chiefs didn't want to trade Tyreek.
They didn't want to trade Tyreek.
I mean, we don't want to trade Chris Jones either, but if it gets to that point.
And to that point, they traded Tyreek what? Before the draft.
Yeah.
If they knew that – because they knew this was looming with Chris Jones. If they knew, dude, Chris is not – we're not going to be able to pay him, they would have traded him. It would have sucked. It would have hurt the Chiefs' chances of winning, but they would have done it because they've done it before. And they didn't do that before the draft. It would make no sense whatsoever if they did it now. Because all that does is significant. I'm talking like 25% hurts your Chiefs, the chances of the Chiefs winning a Super Bowl. They would drop their I would say they're the third or fourth best odds of winning the Super Bowl at that point. I'm serious because he is that important to this defense. People talked about, he didn't play a big role in their first Super Bowl in Super Bowl 54. Bullshit. Go look at the first interception by Jimmy Garoppolo that Rashad Breeland got on the was in the second quarter.
He demanded double teams the whole game.
Dude, yes. Yeah. And he made Jimmy Garoppolo avoid him and have to force the ball over to the right and just sailed it, and Rashad Breeland just went up and got it.
Right.
Chris Jones was bad. I think he had like 3 or 4 batted balls in the game. Like, the man was a madman. He just didn't have a sack.
Him being on the field alone forces offensive lines to pay heed. Yeah.
And so, you remove him right now, or for this next season, you have no contingency plan in place, then you're expecting George Karlaftis and these rookie pass rushers to figure out a way to avoid the double teams?
The Minahu suspension, yeah.
It changes everything,
it's a lot.
man.
Yeah, it's a lot, man. I mean, I'm just hoping and praying every day that I wake up to some news that he gets extended. He's here for the next 3-4 years. That would be just. I hate, like I said, it feels like almost every season, off season, we're going into the training camp with some kind of distraction, and I hate distraction. Granted, we've dealt with it well. Patrick Mahomes has dealt with it well. We've won 2 championships in the last couple years, but yeah. And Chris Jones, I would never want to see that guy in another uniform. That's not something I want to see happen. I do not think he misses any games or skips any games or sits out any games, but need to get this man paid, bro. Plain and simple.
We also need to get to our listening and viewing audiences because you guys have been very patient. We appreciate you guys. We are now going to jump into the Speak It segment where it's basically you guys have the platform, ask us questions, give us takes, and we react to both, and we appreciate that. I know that the chat's been filling up, Trevor, so let's go ahead and if there's some questions or some takes, let's just get to them, man.
Yeah, to start from the top, we got on YouTube, we got Myriad Group. Why would they add another linebacker to our stacked linebacker room? This is kind of when we were talking about Justin Houston possibly joining the Chiefs.
Well, because of the fact that, so I know that when people hear the word linebacker, they think it's a guy that plays like Nick Bolton. No, so what Justin Houston would be is an outside linebacker, which is essentially an edge in this defense, or he'd be a DE. Justin Houston, if you go and look at Justin Houston's career, he's played both positions, and it's essentially the same position.
Shit, he was elite as a defensive end at times. He was incredible.
If you play in a 3-4, you're a defensive end. If you play in a 4-3, you're an outside linebacker, but you're doing the same thing. You're rushing the quarterback.
He would be an edge for the most part if he joined this team, yeah.
Justin Houston is an edge rusher.
He would be what Carlos Dunlap was doing.
Through. Yeah, so linebacker is – it's kind of a loose term. It's kind of like when you see people in the draft and they get drafted and it says tackle. Mm-hmm. You don't really know if that means left tackle,
swing.
right tackle. You have to kind of figure out where they play. That's really what that is. So what Justin Houston just is, whether it's called DE or outside linebacker, he's an edge rusher.
He's a professional football player.
He's an edge rusher. So that would be the reason why the Chiefs would add him, because as it stands, because Charles Omenihu plays what? DE, he's an edge rusher. You don't have that now for 6 weeks. Right. You're now relying on George Karlaftis, year 2 player. You have FAU, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, year 1. That's a lot of pressure on young dudes. So that is why adding him would be a massive edge. Now, I know that they've been in training camp. It looks like they're trying to play Willie Gay into an edge role. That'd be kind of cool to see. Leo Chenal started playing a little bit of that. He started playing around the middle of the field, too, a little bit of Mike linebacker, too, with Nick Bolton as the season progressed. So they have versatility at linebacker. And True Tranquil, I think he had 4.5, 5 sacks last season. So he's a guy that can rush the quarterback as well.
Seeing Willie Gay's athleticism coming off the edge would be interesting to kind of experiment with.
I would love
He's
that.
a freak, man. His athleticism is crazy.
That would add incentive to not signing a guy like Justin Houston. But again, I still think just from a depth perspective and the fact he's not going to break the bank in command now that the market's been set with Yannick Ngakoue getting $10.5 million on a 1-year deal with the Bears, I think Justin Houston, wherever he goes, is going to end up getting a 1-year deal worth about $3 to $5 million.
Yep, and I will take it gladly. Next question is kind of basically a follow-up from our guy Shaggy Shane. Good morning, brothers.
Morning.
Wouldn't Melvin Ingram or Carlos Dunlap be cheaper than Justin Houston?
Not necessarily, because of the fact, like I said, the market is set and they're all still available. So, I mean, Justin Houston is technically the better player between the two. But again, not to downplay the question, but we don't even know if Carlos Dunlap wants to play football.
So
right. Honestly, if you really think about it, if the Chiefs, let's say, were hell-bent on getting Dunlap back.
Do you want a guy that's not really motivated? Yeah,
that, but also think about this. You might have to convince him with a little bit more money.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, think about it. Like, nah, man, I'm comfortable because he just, according to what I've been reading, Dunlap just opened up a restaurant, I think, in the Cincinnati area. So if he's like, I'm kind of busy, and like, no, dude, we got to have you. He's like, all right, well, you're going to have to make it worth my while. You're going to add another $1 million or $2 or $3 to my contract. So technically it would be maybe even more to add Carlos Dunlap. And he was good for this team. So let's not pretend like Dunlap wouldn't come in here and play a role. He would play a role. I think Justin Houston's the better player. And if the numbers match.
We can incentivize Justin Houston with some weed. You know what I mean?
But I'm saying, like, I would help him with that. No, but I'm saying, if the numbers match, like, it's both, like, 1 year, like, if Dunlap and him are within, like, $1 million of each other, regardless of with Houston's higher or lower, I'd still take Houston because he's worth it. I think he's the better player. He clearly is the better player. He had 9.5 sacks last year.
Yeah, I mean, I would gladly take Melvin Ingram, too. I think Melvin Ingram played really well when he was here. The guy's a solid, pretty consistent guy. Similar, I would take any one of those three guys, honestly. But it like you said with Carlos Dunlap, it just depends on if he really does want to play football again or not. So we got another question here from Ruben. I got Ruben De Cruz. How does Kamara get a 3-game suspension? Omenahu 6 games. Is it just me?
No, it's not just you.
We touched on it a little bit, yeah.
Gotta be really careful how you say it, but it's because of who was impacted, who was the victim in both situations. Menahu assaulted a woman, whereas Kamara beat the living shit out of a man. That's really the difference. If Kamara would have done that to a woman, he would be in prison, like Trevor said before the show. I don't want to speak for him, but Kamara would be talking about being in prison and how long if he did the same thing to a woman. Omenahu shoves a woman down. He gets 6 games. Kamara gets 3. I'm not here to debate whether that's fair or unfair. That's just the reality of the situation. So that's why. Yeah.
Not much more to add to that. We do have another comment here from our guy Shaggy Shane. If we are only looking for a 6-week replacement for Charles Omenahu, I bet D Ford would be a dirt cheap replacement.
Good God. like Shaggy, if we're gonna be honest here, do you honestly expect D Ford to be healthy enough to last 6 weeks? And then here's the thing: this isn't actually just a 6-week like patch job. I'm looking at just used to being because I not been saying this for all offseason, Trevor. They need to add veteran pass rush presence. This wasn't about the Charles Omenahu situation as to why I'm saying this now. I'm saying this now because it's even more imperative. Because now you won't have him. We know for sure how long. And it's actually the longest. I think this is about as long as they can suspend a guy for that conduct violation. So I think
6 is the max.
Yeah, he got the max. Yeah. So we weren't. I didn't expect that. Like I said, I was like 2 to 4 games. It's gonna suck, but it's like first month of the season at worst. No, we got 6. So
don't put your hands on women, man. Just know yourself, bro.
Just
Get
don't
out
be
of
stupid,
that.
and that'll happen.
Don't
But yeah, the
yourself in
point
that
is
situation.
that. This isn't, like I said, a makeshift situation where it's like, oh, this is just going to be for 6 weeks and then Justin Houston's going to disappear into the ether, or Carlos Dunlap's going to disappear into the ether, or Melvin Ingram. No, these guys are going to play the role all season. Yeah. It's just that they would play more of a pivotal role at the beginning of the season because now we're missing a guy that's going to be a vital role to this defense moving forward.
It's going to put a lot of emphasis on these second-year guys and this rooks, man, that we got in here.
Definitely. Regardless of who the veterans are.
Yeah. Hopefully this pressure makes diamonds. We got a question here from our guy James T. Kirk on YouTube. Is Josh Allen still a top 5 QB? Nick Wright thinks Josh Allen has fallen completely out of the top 10.
I think that's ridiculous. I love Nick, but Josh Allen is without question a top 10 quarterback.
He's an elite quarterback.
I'm not even going to entertain that debate. Top 5, that is debatable. And the biggest reason why is because Josh Allen is having a very tough time not turning the ball over. That's something he's definitely dealing with, and he's been costing his team games. We saw against the Vikings, we
Sloppy.
saw against the Jets. Those are some games that he 100% cost them. But there's no question he's top 10 because this man, I think, accumulated 86% of the Bills' touchdowns last season, which was the most in the NFL. Josh Allen is an MVP candidate every single year, but I do think that this season is going to be telling is because I think guys like Trevor Lawrence is coming for the top 5. I think right now Trevor Lawrence actually is top 5, if not fringe top 5. Justin Herbert, if he has a big baller season and takes the Chargers to the playoffs again, and they actually win a playoff game or have some success, Justin Herbert's legacy kind of changes a little bit. Just got paid, so it's going to be a little bit tougher as time goes on. So he better do it this year. I think right now, if I'm giving you my top 5, and I'm going to give it to you as much as I can in order, it's clearly Patrick Mahomes at the top. I think Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts are right there at the top, but you can put them wherever you want, 2 or 3. I think Jalen Hurts is more than proven himself. I know that people want to see another season of it, but what he did in that playoff run, and in particular what he did in the Super Bowl, is something Joe Burrow never could dream of doing to this point of his career. So Jalen Hurts is right up there with Joe Burrow in my eyes. Those are my top 3. I think top 4, I would say, I think it's Josh Allen's right there. I think Josh Allen's probably my 4th. You can't tell me there's quarterbacks out there that are more talented and have been as productive as Josh Allen has. And to his defense, he has been to the AFC Championship. He has had they won 4 playoff games, and he's been an integral part in the majority of those.
Stupid numbers.
Yeah, I would say right now, and I think I have my list somewhere on my X account. I gotta get better.
There's a lot of things in flux this season. A lot of guys are gonna, I think, rise to the top this year.
Yeah, because and I think a lot of things in flux. Like how about Twitter used to be called Twitter. My top 10 quarterbacks as of late. I know I had it because this is a question I was about to start dropping my my list in just about a month or so because the season, man, we're like what 35 games ahead or 34 days away from it happening. Let's see, top 10 quarterback list.
Yeah, I don't even have my top 10. I'm pretty sure of what my top 5 are, but
I'm blanking on somebody right now. I would say, yeah, so it's Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, and I'm going to probably say
Herbert.
Did I say Justin Herbert?
You didn't say Justin Herbert yet.
No. And I would say Trevor Lawrence. That's my 5th.
I think Justin Herbert's right there behind
Hear me
those
out on the
guys.
Justin Herbert thing.
Yeah.
Justin Herbert is
I'm talking pure
an elite
talent.
talent, as I've been saying for 3 years now.
He's so good.
But it feels like he peaked. Like his first season, and ironically, it was when there was no road crowds.
No pressure.
He had an insane season. But if you look at his numbers, they all kind of like last year. Everybody thought he was like this incredible. He had 25 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Like,
well, he was banged up for like the last 6-7 games.
Sure, but
his ribs were
even in games where he was healthy, and then squandering a 27-point lead in the playoffs, and Trevor Lawrence, although he was horrible in that first quarter,
blowing that game against the Jags was unacceptable.
Unacceptable. And then simultaneously, the guy that he's competing with when it comes to rankings comes back on that ass.
Oh, you know how I feel about Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, so I think Trevor Lawrence takes that spot right now, and I think Trevor Lawrence is just as talented. Justin Herbert, though,
got better legs.
Yeah, Justin Herbert plays to that level and throws for 5,000 yards, 35 touchdowns. They get a playoff berth and they win a playoff game. Justin Herbert's putting himself in that top 5, but right now I think he's 6th, 7th, right around Lamar Jackson. I think that's where Justin Herbert's at right now.
Yeah, don't forget about Lamar. I think Lamar is going to have a big bounce back year this year. But
I'm a Lamar guy. I'm a Lamar guy.
For sure. We love Lamar on this show. Yeah, I mean, as far as Josh Allen, just to get back to the origin of the question, I think Josh Allen is 100% a top 5 quarterback in this league still for me. But there's a lot of things hinging on this year for him. If he takes a step back, there's some guys that are going to leapfrog him this year. I think Justin Herbert is one of those guys that could do it.
Oh yeah.
I think Lamar absolutely can reestablish himself. And do not forget about a guy by the name of Deshaun Watson. Listen, I understand how we feel about this guy, and the story is fucked up, and we don't like him as a person. But he might remind some people this year with the talent that he is. Deshaun Watson was 100% a top 5 quarterback, leaping into that area, top 5, top 6. So this year could be a year where he puts the Browns offense back, with Amari Cooper there, and I just don't want you guys to sleep on that. I still think he's a guy that needs to be discussed as this season goes on, but definitely not a top 5, top 10 guy at the moment. But I'm still saying there's some guys out there that can definitely leapfrog Josh Allen in that top 5 spot. And Josh Allen is on a downward trajectory, if we are being honest. I mean, people are talking about him being the MVP and the best quarterback in the league and comparing him to Pat. which is always fun things to talk about. But yeah, he's definitely still in the top 5 for me as far as his numbers and his overall talent. The guy with the size, speed, and his ability to run, and maybe has the strongest arm in the league. Just throwing off a flat foot 80-yard touchdown is ridiculous what he can do with that football. So
well, and I also will put this name out there too that I think needs to be recognized. And I know people are going to throw their phones or their laptops or TVs, wherever they're watching us on. A guy when he's healthy that is in this range is Matthew Stafford.
I thought you were going to say Kirk Cousins.
No. I love Kirk. Matthew Stafford is one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the league when healthy. And after the 2021 season and 22, that 21.
A lot of turnovers, man.
I get it. But if we're sitting here talking about Josh Allen, who led the league in interceptions last year, I think that we need to sit here and talk about, or led the league in turnovers, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think that we need to have a discussion about Matt Stafford, too, because last time he was healthy, he had over 6,000 passing yards in total with the playoffs, over 40 touchdowns, and had one of the greatest playoff runs we've ever seen.
That roster is not good. And then Cooper Kupp's now banged up, too. I don't know if you saw that. It's a bad scenario over there in L.A. They went all in, got their chip, but, man, things have been falling apart since then.
Right.
They're going to have to get a better product because L.A. won't. It's not going to work over there. So let's see. What's our next question? You have to pay your elite players. I agree with you, Ruben. Yeah, Chris Jones is not hosting SNL anytime. Yeah, collecting sponsors. We agree with you on that. That's a good part of the argument there for
him to get his money
for that issue. Yeah. So let's see. If they traded up, let's see here. So our guy or our gal, Julia Gulia. If they traded up in the middle of the draft to get a DT, then maybe I could believe Veach is moving up off of Chris Jones.
100%. And where did they wait until they got an interior defensive lineman, Trevor?
Right.
The 6th round. Right. Now, not that Veach doesn't get guys in the 6th round.
Not that they couldn't find diamonds in the rough like we do year.
When they drafted Trey Smith, they didn't have the anticipation he was going to take over the starting role day one. He came in here and impressed. Maybe Keandre Coburn becomes that kind of guy. But the chances of that are very unlikely because, as we know, Chris Jones was a top 36th pick and the 37th pick in that 2016 draft. Like, those guys don't just fall off a tree. Like, Chris Jones is a rarefied air type of player. That's why you hold on to guys like that. He's a unicorn. He's a one-of-one player. He's the best at what he does right now. That is why, and again, the Chiefs are the ones telling me this. This is why I feel so confident in saying that. Because they're showing, it'd be one thing if every single year Brett Veach is taking big swings at defensive tackles, defensive ends, guys that are versatile like Chris Jones that match his size, skills, speed, all that. It'd be one thing if he was doing that. That's not what they're doing. And you can't tell me they couldn't do that at the back end of the first round because, again, Chris Jones was a second-round pick. So they can go and get a guy at that level, that area of the draft, and still find his replacement. They're not even trying.
Yeah.
So I refuse to believe until I know the Chiefs are not paying Chris Jones, I refuse to believe he's not a long-term answer there for the Chiefs.
Gotcha. Next question from Julia Gulia. With Najee getting injured, is there a door open for Nick Jones?
100%. And we talked about this on the show a month ago.
Nick Jones.
That Nick Jones, that draft pick was not just some flyer pick.
Right.
That was a guy I think the Chiefs really liked. And you're seeing it in camp, dude. I think this guy's going to 100% make the team. Even if Najee didn't get hurt, I think Nick still makes the team. Because they like that depth and special teams. I think he's the kind of guy that Dave Tobe can buy into and convince himself to utilize in special teams as well. And we always know attrition, it's a battle of attrition in the NFL. You have to have depth, especially if the Chiefs believe their secondary is going to be what helps lead them to another Super Bowl like it did last season.
Yeah.
He's going to play a role, man. Nick Jones is not a guy that I just scoff at. I think he's going to make the roster. I think he's going to be a player on this team, man.
Yeah, this whole draft this year was incredible. I loved a lot of the picks.
Absolutely.
Nick Jones definitely being one of the guys that looks like he could be a day one contributor for sure. He has that skill set. Looks like he's NFL ready. He's got that speed to him. Next question. I can't see who it is, but it says Facebook user. So if this is your question, establish yourself. And just from this end, I can't see who it is. What if Chris Jones' contract doesn't get done?
Kind of painted the picture, man. I think there's a chance that this could get really ugly.
All hell will break loose. Sir.
I think Chris Jones is showing us, and more importantly, showing the Chiefs that he means business. It's time for him to get paid. I know he had his extension in 2020, but he exceeded that contract. That's why he's where he's at. He's like, look, guys, when I got my contract extension in 2020, we had won a Super Bowl. I helped us get there. I helped you get to 2 more since then.
Yeah.
And I've played in an all-pro level the entire way through. And I just had my best postseason of my career. I'm just now 29 years old. It's time for you to show me, through the monetary funds, what I mean to you guys. I know the Chiefs appreciate him. There's no debating that. The Chiefs love Chris Jones.
Of course.
Andy Reid was talking about it with Mooch on NFL Network a week ago about, we got to get him back to training camp. Like, we all want him there. The Chiefs all want him there. But he has to get this deal done. If it doesn't happen, there is a chance you think it's a distraction now?
Yeah.
Oh, it could be, because we're talking about week 1 coming up quick, dude. It's a month away.
It's annoying, man. Every season, every offseason, we're dealing with something like this. It feels like, whether it's Tyreek or whether it's, Orlando Brown, now it's Chris Jones. It's like,
I guess that's the price you pay when you're a great team like this, though, and you're building a dynasty. And I think that to answer the question as candidly as I possibly can, as honestly as I possibly can, I'm betting that if it doesn't get done, Chris Jones is still playing week 1. I'm betting on that.
yes, he's not skipping
But
games,
I am
dude.
preparing myself mentally and emotionally.
I'm not, because if it happens,
that
I'm
he
breaking
sits
down.
out. Yeah, I know. It's gonna.
I'm not
suck.
ready for that.
Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm gonna be very upset, and honestly, I'm gonna be real with you, Trevor. I'm gonna be more upset with the Chiefs than Chris Jones because I'm more pro player. And again, when a guy's done this for the last 6 years, Trevor, you do realize that Chris Jones is averaging 10.5 sacks per season.
Sure.
Outside of his rookie year, he only had 2 sacks, and he was a slow learner. Since his sophomore season, think about this.
At that position.
Warren Sapp is maybe the greatest player at that position outside of Aaron Donald, right? Or there's a couple other guys too, obviously.
Sure.
Warren Sapp averaged 7.5 sacks for his career per season. That's what Chris Jones averages in his career, exactly, 7.5, if you include his rookie season. But since his second season, he's at an historic clip of averaging double digits at that position. This is a guy, like Mina Kimes broke it down on her Twitter account.
You got to sell me
X
on Chris
account,
Jones, man.
a couple of weeks ago about how you got to pay this dude. Pay him whatever it takes, man. And I'm serious.
Yeah, I mean, if you got to come in there and slide a couple billies under the table, do what you got to do.
I mean, not to dive on, not to re-dive on the whole thing, Trevor, but think about it. We believe this team can win Super Bowls for the next 10 to 12 years, correct?
Yeah.
But what is the iron not hot right now?
Yeah, for
The
sure.
Chiefs are the favorites to win the Super Bowl again. They'll probably be the favorites again next season. And then after that, Travis Kelce might retire. You're going to have to reconfigure some of the offensive line, stuff like that. Like, there's going to be some
You
changes.
need to establish a wide receiver 1.
But you got to hit the iron while the iron is hot.
Yeah.
Like, we do believe that in 5 to 10 years, the Chiefs can probably win a couple more Super Bowls. Sure. But we also know that right now the Chiefs have a great chance of winning a Super Bowl now. So you got to finalize and establish what gets you there. And Chris Jones is one of the biggest reasons why you get there.
Next question is from King MVP Will. So do you guys believe the rumors going around saying Jones wants a bigger contract, just to kind of extend the conversation about Chris Jones?
As far as bigger contract, I mean, the last reports we did hear is that he wants $30 million a year.
Right.
And again, that's
Guarantees.
below even his own market value. So when we talk about big, guys, it could be much bigger. You guys do realize that Chris Jones could be asking for more, and it would still be justified. He's not. He's backing up what he's been saying for months, that he's not even trying to become the highest paid player at his position, because $30 million a year wouldn't make him the highest paid player at his position. It'd make him the second.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're going to be honest here, and I know this pisses a lot of people off because people are purists and they think that Aaron Donald's still at the top of his game, which I don't. I think he's still great, but it's a lot like 2021, 2022 LeBron James. Still great, but he's not the best player in the world anymore. We can agree to that.
Yeah.
Aaron Donald's not the best player at his position anymore. Chris Jones is. And he's still not asking to make the money that Aaron Donald's making. So it could be much bigger, guys. I'll just put it like that. Chris Jones could be asking to break the bank if he really wanted to. He doesn't. He's asking to get paid, though, and I think what he's asking for, and again, this is me considering I don't know what the guaranteed dollars are that he's asking for. We're going to find that out one day, one way or another, whether he gets it or not, that he's probably asking for a ton of guaranteed dollars. But, guys, one thing we can guarantee is that Chris Jones every single year has been an all-pro player practically for the Chiefs, and he seems to be getting better. Yeah. He just had his best season of his career, and that includes 2018.
For me, just to give everybody a peace of mind, I have a connection, a mind connection with the Chiefs, and I'm feeling very strongly that the Chiefs are going to extend Chris Jones.
I like this.
I'm doing my best, Cleo. I do feel very strongly that Chris Jones is going to be a Chief for a long time, guys. I don't have any kind of. I just believe it. You know, I mean, if you want to, if Shane likes to talk about faith and all these things on here, I'm with you on that. I think this is one of those things. I have faith in the Chiefs and Chris Jones. Just at the end of the day, when I'm putting my head on the pillow, I feel peace about Chris Jones being in a Chiefs uniform for the next 3 to 4 to 5 years. I just do. I don't see him leaving. I don't see there being I don't see there being an Orlando Brown situation. I don't see there being a Tyreek Hill situation where he's demanding a trade. I know this is very uncomfortable for all of us right now, but I feel like Chris Jones is going to absolutely be a Chief. It's just a matter of time, honestly. Next question from Julia Gulia. If the Bills get bounced again or miss the playoffs completely, how big of a problem will Diggs become?
Oh God, can you imagine that?
He gone.
I mean, yeah, I think he's got a couple more years left on his deal. If I'm not mistaken, he had that extension.
Talk
signed
about demanding
before
a
last
trade.
season. Yeah, I think
trade.
it would become nuclear at that point.
If they miss the playoffs.
If they miss the playoffs, Sean McDermott's fired.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny? They just got that.
Josh Allen's out of the top 10.
Yeah. Well, it depends on how he plays. If he balls out, but their defense sucks.
Yeah.
Things like that. They'll probably try to do a buyout with Von Miller. I don't think they can do that though until after next season. And again, they just gave their GM and their coach extensions, 2-year extensions, which I'm laughing at. I think they're signed now to 2027.
Right.
So if they miss the playoffs this year, Sean McDermott will get fired.
Yeah.
That means he'd have 4
He's on the
more
hot
years.
seat anyways.
They'd be paying him for another 4 years, even though he's fired. And they're going to pay another coach, and the pressure cooker of going and getting a guy that they know can do the job is even more so. They're going to have to try to find their next Sean McVay. They'd have to go offense on their next coaching strategy because McDermott's defense.
That's the way, anyways, man.
Yeah, I look, and we'll give our predictions.
Yeah.
I
can't wait,
in
man.
September, early September.
The
Bills are on a pressure cooker, man. They definitely are.
100%.
There's never been, and I nailed this when I said this before last season. When I said that if the Bills don't win the Super Bowl last season, that it's only going to get more and more. And I think they're the type of team that crumbles under pressure rather than rises to it. Remember, I said this.
They've done nothing but prove
This
that.
is why I had them going 11-6 last year. I know they had a better record than that, but I had it ending just as it did, where they lose in the divisional round because I did not believe in that team. And what ends up freaking happening, man?
Yeah.
I think that this is the biggest year for the Bills in their recent history over the last 25 years.
And the craziest part is, like, the biggest, clutchest moments of Josh Allen's career, most of those have come at losses to Patrick Mahomes. His greatest late game performance was in that game in the AFC Championship, and we still blew it for him. It sucks. That's great.
Well, and if you look at it also, the Bills have never beaten a really good quarterback in the playoffs. I mean,
that's true.
It
was similar to how we felt about Lamar for a while.
I take it back. They did beat Lamar in the playoffs 3 years ago, or 2 years ago. But let's be real. Lamar Jackson hasn't exactly, like you just said.
He's not been very good.
He has a 68 quarterback rating in his playoff.
One win, right? He has one playoff win.
Against the Titans.
Right. Yeah. So against Tannehill, that's tough. Yeah. Next question is from our guy James T. Kirk. Tyson Fury is fighting Francis Ngannou. Isn't it sad that Francis had to leave Dana White's UFC because Dana not wanting to pay the man? Tyson will probably destroy him in a boxing match. I love the little change of pace here. I
love that you brought this up, and I could not agree with anything. I could not agree with what you just said anymore. Dana White is as good of a marketing man as he is, and he's blown up the UFC farther than they probably ever could have imagined it to become. As great as he is at certain things, he's equally as terrible in others. And he refuses to pay these fighters the way they should. But here's the biggest thing, James, that we have to remember. It's not about the actual payment that Ngannou left. He left. Go look this up. He left because he was fighting for insurance for the fighters.
Right.
And Dana refused to budge on it. And so Ngannou said, okay, I'm gone. And look, Dana can say, all right, I'm good with that because we have all these stars that are current and coming up.
Yep.
We can live on without you, and they clearly have, and they clearly will.
He's breeding them.
But Ngannou has so much integrity that he was not willing to budge off of his stance, which is what every fighter commends him for, which is fighting for their insurance, which they don't have. That's the biggest problem. When it comes to the Tyson Fury and Ngannou matchup, Tyson Fury is going to obliterate him. Because Tyson Fury is an actual boxer.
You seen Mike Tyson's training Ngannou?
Yeah, and that's nice and all. And Ngannou has incredible hands. He has the strongest punch in the world.
The speed difference, though.
But the speed difference, the tactical maneuverability, the nimbleness, like Tyson's going to obliterate him. Now, don't get me wrong. If Ngannou hits him, like gets a good, combo on him, hits him with an uppercut, that's going to rock Tyson's world. He's never been hit that hard. But Tyson is going to be able to outlast him. That's the whole thing.
His skill set.
It's gonna, and this is unlike the Mayweather-McGregor fight. This is going to be a real boxing match. So Tyson's going to put work on him, dude. Tyson is the best big boxer in the world. It's not close. And when he's done, he might go down as the greatest heavyweight of all time.
I personally think McGregor's a better boxer than Ngannou is, but if you want to,
we haven't seen Ngannou.
But I'm saying that's actually Connor's background was Irish boxing, but
that was a dance, though. We all know.
Yeah, that was terrible.
It's gonna be like the Nate Diaz and.
That's tonight, man.
Yeah, I know.
I want to watch it.
I
will be watching it. I'm actually excited about it to see what the result is because the result I think has a lot of There's a lot of things hinging on the result of this, whether Jake continues or
Jake's gonna win.
You think so?
Yes.
Yeah.
Jake's gonna win.
I want Diaz to win so bad, bro.
I do too. I love Nate, but come on, man. Like this.
But yeah. Back to the Ngannou thing. Ngannou was offered a massive contract from Dana.
Yes.
I think arguably the biggest contract in UFC currently. So it wasn't necessarily money. It was more about moral reasons, and I commend Francis on that for walking away from a massive payout. Granted, he's gonna make more money in this boxing fight than he's ever made
or ever would
in his whole entire UFC career.
And he's 36, 37 now. So
really,
his time is coming really.
He can do this and just freaking retire if he wants to.
I think
he
will.
probably
I think
will.
He will.
Unless he likes it and wants to fight some other fairly big name or something in
It's never
boxing.
getting better than this.
Sure.
Tyson Fury is the ticket.
I will be watching, bro. That's gonna be fireworks.
If he fights maybe Deontay Wilder, maybe they gets another.
That would be even. I think
that would be fun.
Matchup wise, this is haymakers all day. Just who knocks out who
19
first.
seconds. Just
Yeah, because I think Tyson's just gonna pick him apart. You know what I mean? But
That's what I'm saying.
Tyson Fury is just one of one.
Yeah.
He's arguably the best
never seen
ever.
anything like
He's
him.
the best ever as far as size, speed, just
He's
skill set.
6'9" and his nimble's a mouse, man.
I love
like,
it. And then he's one of the most marketable mouths too. It's like Conor McGregor for boxing. He's great. But yes, great. Thank you for bringing that up. I was actually very proud of Ngannou for actually sticking to his guns. So good for him. Chiefs Alcoholic from YouTube has a question. Y'all think Wacker, Watson, and the Browns have a chance to make the playoffs?
Well,
I guess that was maybe more. I don't know if that was about my comment about Deshaun maybe coming back on the map.
Awesome name, first of all, on the YouTube handle. I appreciate the question as well. I will say this: I'm not giving my predictions yet because that's a golden rule we have here, and we don't do that until the week before the regular season kicks off, which will be the first week of September. I will say that I'm not one that's very big on the Browns, and I'm actually somebody that doesn't believe that Deshaun Watson's ever going to come close to what he once was. We all know that the quarterback position is not based upon just skill. It's a very unique position because you have to have the mental fortitude, the emotional fortitude to lead a team and to be able to understand everything that's going on around you. Because something they always talk about when it comes to like Patrick Mahomes is he knows everyone else's job just as good, if not better, than they do. When it comes to where the wide receiver is supposed to be, what the offensive line is supposed to do, everything. I don't believe that Deshaun Watson's going to be able to withstand what's going to be around him for the rest of his career. Opposing fan bases, social media, all these places are never going to relent. They're never going to lay down when it comes to what had happened in his past. And I think that and you see it like, you would hope to see some growth from a guy like Deshaun, but you saw in his presser, it was a little over a week ago, sitting here still victim blaming. Sitting here blaming the media for what he's going through, what he went through this last year. Yeah. The dude just doesn't get it. He's just a dunce. And he's just gonna always be that guy, in my opinion. And so for that, if the Browns got a focused, rejuvenated Deshaun Watson that's willing to, take on whatever it is, the rigors of everything that comes with this, I would feel a lot more confident because this team is loaded on both sides of the ball. And I think Stefanski's a good head coach.
Yeah.
But they're only going to go as far as Deshaun takes them. And I just don't think he's ever going to become the guy we once saw because Trevor was right about 15 minutes ago. Deshaun was easily one of the 3 to 5 best quarterbacks in the league in 2017.
He was pushing elite status.
He was unreal.
And the Texans.
In 2019, unreal.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
granted, he had D-Hop. He had some.
I don't think that's coming back, though. I think he could still be a good quarterback, like a 12 to 20 kind of quarterback. I don't think he's ever going to become what he once was. Not that he doesn't have the skill, but like I said, 80% of being a great quarterback in the league is up here, if you look at it.
I think he's a shoo-in for at least being a top 15 guy. I think Deshaun is way too talented to completely fall off. And he absolutely could. The mental aspect of things could absolutely get to him. We've seen it. Does he have the internal fortitude to come back and reestablish himself? I think the talent is 100% there. That's not even a question. Yeah. It's just whether he can get himself, reel himself in and live with what the decisions he's made and the public eye, aspect of things, and can he deal with that? I think we started to see him trend a little up as the season ended last year. Like you said, that roster is loaded, and they have a great running game. They got arguably the best running back in football. That defense is loaded still. Arguably the defensive player of the year on that defense for this season. Myles Garrett's an absolute beast. So you got Amari Cooper over there. That's a very talented team. I do think Deshaun actually has a pretty good year this year. I think he reestablishes himself as one of the more talented quarterbacks in this league. Granted, there's a lot of up-and-coming young guys in this league as well, and Trevor Lawrence, I believe, is on his path as well. So there's a lot of guys that a lot of names that'll be shifting around as far as top 10 lists go. But I do think he is one to watch for sure. I have respect for his overall talent and what I believe he can be. Next question we have from a Facebook user. Which defensive lineman do you think is close to being as good as Chris Jones on the Chiefs roster?
Which defensive lineman do I think is me good?
Is close to being as good as Chris Jones. Or maybe they're talking about who's maybe in line if Chris Jones is absent. But who is close to being as good as Chris Jones? There's not a lot of people in the league as close to being as good as Chris Jones.
Look, I'm just gonna answer as honestly as I can. There's nobody.
Yeah.
There's no one. That is again why I feel the way I feel and say the things I say when it comes to the Chiefs have to pay him, and they know they have to because they've not even put an effort into replacing him or putting people around him that are comparable. Like, look, Chris, we're not paying you this because this young guy right here has put in the work. He can replace you, and we'll save $25 million.
Yeah, Keandre Coburn's coming, man. You better
and look,
watch your ass.
You know that's my guy.
Yeah, he's a beast.
I like Keandre, but their style, their body weight, their body size, everything is way different.
Yeah.
So he could never replicate what Chris Jones does.
I think Mike Dana would be that fill-in guy probably for the most part.
That's scary to think about because I love Mike, but let's
he's
be
good
real.
against the run, but
he's a good rotational
not
guy.
great at getting in the quarterback.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's more of like a DN. He's a smaller body.
He's a good gap filler.
Chris Jones is what, 260 pounds, 265 pounds?
Yeah, they're not built like him.
Maybe even more.
There's not a lot of guys
huge.
built like him.
Mike Dana is on the 240 size. He's built more like a linebacker. So, yeah, there's nobody on this team to answer that question as honestly as I can. I would love to give you a name. There isn't one. They don't have a team built to replace Chris Jones or have anybody replicate what he does. He is truly one of one.
Yeah. Out of respect, I'm going to throw John Harrison's comment on here. I told people back after 2017 season I thought Chris Jones was a modern-day Reggie White type player. I think that's the best comparison with Chris Jones.
Great comparison.
Very, very similar players. And he has shown the league that now. He's a unicorn player. Pay him.
Couldn't agree more, John. Yeah. You are, as always, man, you're near nails. You know what you're talking about, man.
It seems like everybody in our chat is 100% on board with getting him taken care of, and trust me.
All the smart people hang out here, Trevor. You know what I mean? Like they help us out. You know what I'm saying? All the logicals come over here.
Julia Gulia, next question. Other sports has had McDuffie in the same group as Sauce this year. Agree?
Look, I'm a big. I will say this because I don't want to take back what I said. I did say that it would not shock me if in the next 2 years Trent McDuffie is an All-Pro player.
Sure.
I think he's got that talent. I think the Chiefs knew that when they look at it like this. I think he's so special and so good. The Chiefs, a team that infamously does not value the cornerback position like other teams do, and I've broken down this many times about how the Chiefs have literally went so cheap at cornerback. They trade up in the first round for Trent McDuffie.
The Bills were going to take him most likely.
And they're like, yeah, we're not having that guy lock up our wide receivers. Trent McDuffie, I think, could be a top 10 cornerback in this league. Sauce Gardner has the potential of being the best, if not already.
He's Darrell Revis all over again.
Yeah,
dude.
I don't think that you can really I don't think it's fair to Trent McDuffie. I
think he's already the best corner in
that's what I'm saying.
football.
It's like him, Jalen Ramsey, Patrick Surtain. Like those are like the upper echelon guys.
Yeah.
I don't think Trent McDuffie is going to be that where he's the best in the league, but he could definitely be a top 8, 9, 10 corner
consistently in the top 5. I think he's going to be a top 5 guy.
A lockdown kind of corner. I definitely think Trent McDuffie can be a top 10, and he might be by the end of this year.
Which, I mean, I'll take that. I'll take trading up for that kind of guy for sure.
Yeah.
Ruben DeCruz, what do you guys think of Diggs trash talking Dak?
I'm glad this one was brought up. I'm very glad this one was brought up. So Trayvon Diggs, if you don't know, cornerback for the Dallas Cowboys, in practice at training camp, they ran Dak out of the end zone, or I think it was out of bounds, and he says, "You're in a box, and him and Dak are chirping, and all of a sudden Trayvon says, "Shut your bitch ass up." That obviously made news because it's the Cowboys, so anything that happens at Cowboys camp is going to make news. Anything Jerry Jones says is going to make news. Dak Prescott and Trayvon Diggs both downplayed this. Everyone said, this would never happen to Patrick Mahomes. No one would ever say that. So there must be a lack of respect. I've been back and forth on this situation. I'm really glad this was brought up because I think this is an important topic to bring up because it does address directly how players view their quarterbacks. What I will say is this. I agree that no one would probably say that exact same thing to Patrick Mahomes.
Not on our roster.
Not on this roster.
Yeah.
And we saw Rashad Fenton jawing with Patrick last training camp. How'd that work out with Rashad Fenton? He got traded for a
fucking home the whole
6th round
time.
pick. Yeah,
Fucking
exactly. And Patrick legit was pissed about that.
Yeah.
Rashad Fenton was jawing, and it's good. I like stuff like this for the most part. I do think there are lines you don't cross.
Yeah.
And it does beg the question that when Trayvon Diggs says something like that to Dak's face, that he doesn't have the reverence that other people would have for a Patrick Mahomes. But let's be real here.
Yeah.
Dak isn't Patrick Mahomes.
Sure.
So you're not going to have that same reverence. But do I think that Trayvon Diggs doesn't respect Dak Prescott? Do I think that from week 1 on that this is going to be a real story?
They're
No.
boys. They're boys.
I don't think this is going to affect them as a team.
Yeah.
But I do think that there is a hierarchy, and I think this reveals that more so that you would never hear somebody say that to Peyton Manning. No one would say that to Tom Brady. But I do think there is jawing that's had. You see Patrick Mahomes, like I said, get into arguments. You see Travis Kelce get in arguments. The leaders of the best team in the NFL. So it shouldn't shock you that you see things. I think the only reason why this is a story is because we got audio of what was said.
Yeah.
And I think that's why. But I think more so this just revealed where the hierarchy is amongst quarterbacks. I don't think this is a story as far as Trayvon Diggs and Dak not liking
There's
each
no
other.
inner turmoil.
Yeah, I think they after that play was over, they both just forgot about it.
Sure, but I do. There is something to publicly calling your quarterback out outside his name publicly.
That's what I'm saying. If we never heard the audio, this would have been a non-story.
Yeah, I mean, but openly calling your quarterback a bitch, shut your bitch ass up, and things of the such. That's a bad look, man. I don't think on Trayvon's part you shouldn't do that to your quarterback publicly, especially on your field. I know it's hot. It's training camp. It's grueling. It's a grueling process. Dak was saying things. He wasn't screaming profanities, but he was throwing some jabs out there. But that's just. Granted, we all know in the scrum of things in practice, there's all kinds of shit that's said that's not caught on camera, and we don't have the audio for it. It just happened to catch that, and like you said, this is America's team, so everything gets blown out of context, everything gets blown out of proportion with these kind of things, but they're fun talking points, I mean, is there a drama? And it doesn't help with Dak putting the extra pressure on himself at the beginning of the year, talking about how he's going to have a career low in interceptions. Okay, bud. All that's got to do is hype up any defense that plays you, let alone the guys that play across you more than anybody, your roster. So this is just normal camaraderie. But I do have a problem with, if someone said that to Patrick Mahomes and they called my quarterback outside of their name during practice, I would have a problem with that, 100%. But like you said, you don't see it. There is a variance in respect levels amongst these quarterbacks. And Dak is lower on the totem pole than Pat, that is for sure. Facebook user, I believe I'm not sure who it is exactly. What do you guys believe in? Who do you guys believe is the starting lineup for the wide receivers this season? It's going to change throughout the year.
It's gonna variate. What I will say is this: I've been putting it out there on X. So if you guys are seeing on the bottom of the screen, I'm at Lance the Spoken on X. I did say this week, just based upon all the hype and everything we're seeing from a performance standpoint, that Justin Ross is going to make this team. I know that Kadarius Toney, that's probably going to end up on the inactive list for a little bit, probably will help with that. But I do think there's going to be a battle of the Justins, if you will. I think it's going to be Justin Ross versus Justin Watson when Kadarius Toney is on this team, because I still stand firm on the fact that I think they're only going to carry 6 wide receivers. So if I'm making my prediction right now, I know it's been, like I said, adjusted. Mine is slightly adjusted because I think if the Chiefs have to choose between Watson and Ross, they're going to pick Ross because Ross is the more talented player.
Yeah, and
he's the cheaper player.
He does things that
he just adds a versatility to this offense that Justin Watson could never dream of giving. And I'm not even a Watson guy, but I picked him because of the experience.
He has Pat's trust.
Yes,
That's
and he has a
huge.
2-year deal. Like there were reasons why.
Yeah.
But if it comes down to them, so let's say the Chiefs have to choose between the Justins. They're going to pick Ross, so I'm going to say it's going to be Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, MVS, Rashee Rice, Justin Ross, and is that 6 right there?
I think it sounds like it.
I think that's 6 right there, yeah.
Yeah.
Those would be I think Justin Ross would make that 6th spot if they keep 6, which I'm expecting them to.
Yeah, I think Watson will end up on the practice squad. Most likely he'll end up on...
He'll make a roster somewhere else.
That's true.
He won't. I don't think he'd clear waivers. I think he'd make a
someone will
roster.
someone will probably snag him. He's a solid player, but I think this is a good problem to have.
And I think real quick, I think this would incentivize the Chiefs because training camp injuries happen all the time, especially to skill positions.
Right.
Maybe the Chiefs like, hey, look, would you guys give us a conditional 5th or 6th round pick for a Justin Watson?
Sure.
And we'll trade you to him.
Sure.
Give us a 6th round pick for Justin Watson.
Well, and let's not act like Justin Ross. I mean, with that back infusion that he's had, let's not act like one bad hit can take him out for the rest of the year. You know, I mean, and not wishing that on anyone. Obviously, don't want to jinx anything, but it's saying like we got to be real with ourselves. This is a guy who had a massive back injury. You know what I mean? Had a spinal fusion
and ankle.
Yeah, so I mean, these are not things that can be looked over. A lot of that's career ending for a lot of guys. You know what I mean? So I'm glad the story is in the roller coaster, or not the roller coaster, but the train is strong with him right now. The hype train is strong, and I love it. I hope he becomes an absolute elite player in this league. That would be incredible for this team. What a story, right? I'm rooting for that. I really hope that happens.
But sure, what would I be talking about?
Yeah.
There's no expectations.
There's no hype
on
behind
Justin
it.
Ross.
There's definitely no hype behind it.
What would I be talking about?
Yeah.
Come on.
With the one-handed catches in practice?
Yeah.
I mean,
the Chiefs account doesn't tweet him out every 5 freaking minutes either, right, Trevor?
What do you be talking about?
What would I be talking about?
But yeah, man. So the wide receiver room, I think there's going to be a lot of variance. I do think Kadarius Toney is the wide receiver one. I think he maybe misses a week or two possibly to start the year with that issue. I don't think he misses that much time, but I think Kadarius Toney, this is his year. And see if he stays healthy, I think his numbers are going to be stupid. I really do believe that.
Before we get to anybody else's chat, anybody that's in the chat can verify this that was here last week. You weren't. Hear me out real quick.
Oh boy.
I've made like an unofficial prediction. I'm reserving my right to change it as we get closer to our official predictions. I said on our show last week, it would not shock me at all if the 2 leading receivers on this team are 2 tight ends or a tight end and a running back.
McKinnon, Kelsey.
Or Travis Kelce and Noah Gray. Noah Gray.
I do think Noah Gray's a sleeper this year. I think he's going to get a lot of work.
This team is, I think that's why I said I think they're going to keep 4 running
I do
backs
agree
and
with
4
that.
tight ends.
Yeah. I love that, actually.
Because they love to run 12 and 13 personnel. They like to give Patrick Mahomes that extra
That
protection.
helps the running game a lot, too.
Deneric Prince's emergence.
Yeah.
The fact that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is better on this team than not, because it's more. I think they could save money letting him go, but the fact that you can just have that depth as a guy that was your first round pick, that's like, I mean, let's be real, man. Like, I know that Clyde's lost fans out the ass. The dude had 6 touchdowns last season.
He's still very valuable.
He's a productive player. So with the wide receiver room, in my opinion, and I explained this in great detail last week, so if you didn't watch the show last week, go back and check it out, guys. I said that I don't believe the wide receiver room is going to be one of the biggest strengths this team has, and I don't think that's going to shock anybody because of Kadarius Toney's uncertainty, because the uncertainty across the board of what these guys are. Maybe they do pop, and maybe I'm completely wrong. But as it currently stands, I think the tight end and running back position is going to be just as, if not more valuable to the pass game as the wide receiver room is. So I think that there's a great chance. We know Travis Kelce, if healthy, is going to put up 1,000+ yards. But after that, it would not shock me at all if Noah Gray has 650 yards or if Jerick McKinnon has 650 yards, and that's the second leading receiver on the team. So what are your thoughts on that, Trevor? Do you agree, disagree, think that's crazy, think it makes sense?
I mean, with Andy Reid, I wouldn't be surprised if the numbers are dispersed all over the place. We saw that just last year. We didn't have a 1,000-yard receiver. I mean, we had one close. I think if Juju never would have gotten hurt, he would have definitely cleared 1,000 yards.
933.
And Juju was definitely the wide receiver one. Outside of Kelsey being the number 1 target for sure. But yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like, for me personally, and I know our guy Shaggy Shane will agree with me. I am a believer in Kadarius Toney. I think if he plays at least 15 games this year, I think his number is going to be great.
Yeah,
I think he's going to have
the thought of him playing 15.
Sure,
games.
I do think with this injury right now he's dealing with, I think he might miss week 1 or week through week 2 possibly. Hopefully no longer than that. But I think if he comes in, he's good to go. I think Kadarius Toney is primed for a really good year this year. And I think he's driven himself to carry on with that trash talk he was talking this offseason. You know, he's got to follow that up with some work, right? So, and I think he is. I think he will. But I would not be surprised if McKinnon absolutely sets a receiving record for, you know, he's rivaling LaDainian Tomlinson for like receiving numbers or something like that. I would not be surprised with his skill set. He's very good at those kinds of things. And with McCole being gone, you know, not having that role, I think that's going to really play a factor for McKinnon getting some more work with a similar skill set.
And I know it's a lofty expectation for a kid that has no expectation to this point, but Deneric Prince is showing in training camp that he's a guy that I think the Chiefs are going to rely on in the pass and run game. Sure. I think, like I said, this is why I think he could become this year's Isaiah Pacheco, that comes out of nowhere, has low expectations, and all of a sudden, Pacheco is missing a couple of games, Deneric Prince steps in as productive.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're going to see from Deneric Prince. In college, he wasn't a guy that caught a lot of passes. We're seeing in training camp, and I saw from my own self, in front of myself, Trevor, 20 feet away, Deneric Prince was catching passes.
Yeah, you ain't got a choice in this offense, dude. Yeah. If you're running back on this team, you're catching passes.
Right.
They even threw to Rojo.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, next question. Facebook user, I'm not sure who you are. Sorry about that. You guys going to the home opener?
I will not be. Trevor will not be, because of the fact that we have the privilege now of, because we obviously are under the Starcade Media umbrella. We are actually going to be having a post-game show every single week called Chatting Up Chiefs with former Chiefs defensive lineman Vaughn Booker. We're really excited about this, man. We're getting a great opportunity to do a post-game show. So right after the show is over, you guys hop on a Starcade Media's YouTube channel, and we will be on there giving you guys our immediate reactions, takeaways of what took place in the game. This is going to be all season long. So more than likely, unless it's like a big special playoff game where Starcade has us out there at Arrowhead, talking about this game where it's a big-time game, something like that changes, we probably won't be at a lot of games this season because of that responsibility that's been given to us, and we're really excited about it. But thank you for asking.
Gotcha. So next question comes from our guy Brian Parrott.
Nice, Brian's in. Okay.
How bad does FAU over Omenahu for 6 games affect our start? I'm seeing a possible 2-2 with the injuries and suspension. Y'all's thoughts?
Well, look, I don't think that the Chiefs are going to be winning and losing games based upon the absence or the presence of Omenahu here. I just think that it's going to make things a little bit easier on Patrick Mahomes and the offense having Omenahu in place. If we remember, guys, the Chiefs consistently were winning. They've never won less than 12 games in the Patrick Mahomes era. They've won at least 12 games every year. And if we know, the defense has gone up and down. It's been a roller coaster when it comes to overall defensive ranking. In 2018, the Chiefs won 12 games. They had the 24th ranked defense. We've seen the Chiefs win 12 games with the 11th ranked defense. So I don't think it's going to be, the Chiefs are going to win X amount of games in that six-game span because Omenahu's out. I just think the difficulty is going to be a lot harder, and the pressure is going to be. This is why, again, I'm bringing it up. This is why I wanted DeAndre Hopkins or a Juju to be on this offense, because although I think the offense can still flourish, it's so much easier to do it when you have a proven commodity at a position of need.
Yep.
And I think that Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Chris Jones and these guys can lead this team in a 6-game span where they can go 5-1 or even 6-0. I don't think that Omenahu's absence is going to cause the Chiefs to go on a big losing streak, but it's going to make it much more difficult for guys like Felix and younger guys like that, which is why we addressed that off the top of the show. And I know, Brian, you may not have been able to jump in until right now, and that's okay, but that is what we've been addressing throughout the show, is that it's going to put a lot of pressure on these guys, which is why I think that going and getting a Justin Houston is very imperative to kind of ease that up a little bit, where you have more veteran presence there to back these guys and lead these guys and show these guys how to get it done in the NFL at that position. So I think that the Chiefs need to go and get a Justin Houston, but I'm confident that Felix and these young guys are going to play a role this season. I think they're going to play a role. How big, how much, how imperative, I don't know yet, but I'm excited to find out, because I think these guys have all the capabilities and abilities, especially under the tutelage of Joe Cullen, under Steve Spagnuolo, and even Andy Reid, because he knows defenses. The guy schemed against them for 30 years.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this, and I hope that King Felix and guys and George Karlaftis, in coming into the second year to take that next step. I think they should look at it as an opportunity, right? With Omenahu hasn't played any real snaps with us yet either.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we don't know how good he fit in this scheme yet. He may not work out long term. I doubt that. I think he's a great fit, 100%. But I'm saying, maybe someone, not saying he loses his job to anybody, but I mean, maybe someone steps in and is just as valuable as he is, and we have even more of a depth at that position. We find out what guys are made of when it comes to real game reps and things like that. Maybe King Felix goes out there and absolutely just balls out, and he's a day one guy. You know what I mean? Or George Karlaftis absolutely becomes an absolute beast this season, which I think is very possible. I think George can take a big step this year. But the most important thing is getting Chris Jones out there to have that leadership, to have that attention from the offensive lines, and the opposing offensive coordinators that are scheming against us. Having Chris Jones out there is the most important thing right now going on. So Omenahu, 6 games is a long time, man. It sucks. Like I said at the beginning of the show, like a whole lot can change in six weeks. So when he comes back, it could be a whole different scenario. He might be needed that much more or that much less, because we might find out what other guys are made of. So I'm looking at this as an opportunity, and I'm hoping that those young guys are as well. Brian also adds, I'm already tasting the Zarda, boys. Is Trevor coming too? Going to get all chewed up. I may or may not make it. I'm not sure. I'm a very busy individual, man. And then when it comes to my weekends, I'm either with my kids or I'm working overtime at my job. It depends. It really depends. I'm going to try to see what I could do, though, man, for sure. Brian also follows that quote up with Ross's trade value has doubled since the national media started squawking. That is true. I mean, if you want to talk about the idea of maybe hyping him up for a reason.
I'll say this.
Yeah.
If the Chiefs, if the hype is something the Chiefs are trying to utilize to pump up Ross,
Yeah.
it's for their own selfish reasons. I don't think it's going to be so they can try to trade him.
Give opposing teams something to think about.
I think if the Chiefs still had Tyreek Hill, they're are a proven commodity. If they signed DeAndre Hopkins and Justin Ross was getting hot like this, then you're like, yeah, okay, maybe they can get like a third or fourth round out of the kid. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Chiefs definitely have plans for Justin Ross. They haven't stuck by his side like this for the last 2 years to go just and try to trade him off for a 5th round pick. I don't think that's the reality here, and I think at best that's what you'd be getting for a Justin Ross, even with the hype considered. The fact is we've never seen this guy play at the NFL level,
right?
And he's had, like you said, Trevor, a myriad of serious injuries. I don't think the Chiefs are getting a value top 2-3 round pick out of Justin Ross right now. Maybe if he goes and has, an 800-yard season this year with 6-7 touchdowns, okay, then you're talking about if he has like a Tyler Boyd season, yeah, you can probably get a 3rd round pick out of Justin Ross, but you'd have to have a full season of him first. You have to see if he can stay healthy. No one's trading for him right now, especially for anything of value.
Yeah, the hype is never real until it's actually in a real game. That's how I look at it. So once he proves it in a real game, then I'll start gloating over the boy.
Sure.
Brian follows that up with, are y'all seeing any of these showcase guys as trade bait? Kind of following that up with the idea of trading Ross.
Yeah, I think, and that's why I brought up Justin Watson, because the Chiefs are also showing him too. You're seeing that they're throwing a lot of balls to him downfield to show like what he can do downfield. He can be a downfield threat. We saw last season Justin Watson got a lot of downfield. We saw one of the game-winning play outside of Jalen Watson, ironically, getting the 99-yard pick six, was what? Patrick Mahomes throwing deep, burning J.C. Jackson was who? Justin Watson.
Boys got wheels.
So I think if there was a guy that's going to be trade bait on the offensive side, it's going to be Justin Watson.
Yeah.
And teams would vie up for that because he's 27 years old, good team guy, stays healthy, and he's got a cheap 2-year deal.
And he came out of a big college. It was a stud his freshman year. He was setting records. I mean, he played alongside T. Higgins, was arguably the better receiver at that time. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
I mean, Clyde, you could say Clyde's a trade piece.
Yeah,
maybe the Chiefs.
He's kind of a nice little throw-in at this point, if we're being honest.
During training or maybe during preseason games, like utilize him a lot.
Yeah.
And show that, hey, look, guys, Clyde still got it. He can be a productive player. Somebody gives the Chiefs a
running backs aren't holding much
pick.
weight right now, especially guys that are kind of peons at this point, like Clyde. No
With
offense.
Kareem Hunt and guys like that still sitting out there, I just don't think anybody's trading for Clyde.
True. All right, we have one last one that I see so far, unless we get some other one. Race Garbrandt from Facebook. What do you guys think of the Jets?
Okay, so again, I stay true to it with the prediction side of things, that I'm not going to give you guys win-losses or expectations of how deep they go into the playoffs.
We'll get there.
Like I will say this, and it's very simple. If Aaron Rodgers is what he looks to be right now, which is completely locked in, I do believe the Jets are contenders. I think they have a defense that is more than capable of finishing top 5 again this year. They had 2 of the best young defensive players in the league in Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner last year, and they have a very complete defense in my eyes. They have a good linebacking room. The secondary is obviously awesome, and they're motivated more than anything. And Robert Saleh is one of the best defensive minds in the league. Even though I'm not more of a guy, I like more of an offensive-minded head coach. I prefer that.
But when you have an elite quarterback,
top-tier
quarterback,
I think Aaron Rodgers, even though he is long in the tooth,
yep.
I think a lot of people are assuming that last season is a precursor of what he's going to be for the next couple of years, which I do believe. He will at least another 2 seasons. He's been talking like he's going to play 3 more. I would love that because I think Aaron Rodgers is a great thing for the NFL, and I think him playing on a team like this, a young, inspiring team, is a great thing for the NFL, even though it's on the AFC side and it feels like we're just stockpiling on the AFC side.
Right.
I think this team with Garrett Wilson, a budding superstar at wide receiver, Breece Hall potential coming back, maybe even they get Dalvin Cook on the offense. The only thing that worries me about this team overly is their offensive line. Mekhi Becton is a guy that just cannot stay healthy, and they've been relying on him. They can't decide if they want to play him left tackle, right tackle. They got a lot of questions on their offensive line. I think if they can maintain that, and I think that Nat Hackett having the motivation of re-energizing or reestablishing his legacy because he failed so badly with the Broncos, with Sean Payton doing what he did and saying what he said, Nat Hackett and Aaron Rodgers having this motivation of proving him wrong, the defense showing that, hey, look, we were just a quarterback away because we were one of the 5 best defenses in the league last year, and we had 7 wins with the worst quarterback room in place. Now we have a top 10 quarterback in place that's motivated to prove that it was more about him than the Packers. guys, if Aaron's locked in with that kind of team, this will be a contender. I don't know how anybody could say otherwise. I know my guy Nick Wright, he's saying he's not buying into this team. A lot of people are saying they're not buying into this team. I think the Jets were literally just a quarterback away, and they're going to prove that this year if, in fact, like I said, Rodgers is really what he says he is, and he's here trying to lead this team and show this team that he can lead them into the playoffs.
I will prematurely crown them as contenders already. I think they are contenders. I know we will get to our predictions, and I do got some predictions on the Jets. Long story short, I love this team. And there, maybe if some of you might think that there's some bias in there because I am an Aaron Rodgers guy through and through. I love Aaron Rodgers. He's one of my favorite all-time players. And there is some bias in there, but it's backed by the pure talent that is Aaron Rodgers and the fact that team last year was a really good team, and they had awful quarterback play, some of the worst in the league. So you pair that defense and those stars on that and those studs on that offense that could become stars. Garrett Wilson for sure has the capability of becoming a star receiver in this league, and that could be absolutely unlocked by Aaron Rodgers' skill set. So I love the Jets. Long story short, I love the Jets this season. I think they're a really, really good team coming into this year.
Well, and real quick, I will say this also because you're bringing up the fact that Aaron Rodgers can reinvigorate himself, and I said that as well. But also look at it like this, guys. Aaron Rodgers was dealing with a ligament tear, I think, wasn't it, in his throwing hand?
He had a few things going on last year.
Against the Giants, he tore that or whatever. Mm-hmm. And he had really outside. I mean, maybe Christian Watson becomes something legitimate, but he didn't have anywhere near anything like Garrett Wilson or a Devontae Adams, which ironically, Garrett Wilson gets compared to Devontae Adams a lot.
Well, dude, and Bakhtiari was out pretty much all year last year. Right. He was in and out. And that offensive line was not good. Right. They tried to establish the run a lot and become a run-first offense, and it just wasn't working.
And
his number one receivers were his two running backs.
Yeah, and I felt like the Rodgers era was kind of already done, and they were just kind of like muddying the water at that point. It just kept getting ugly. I think a fresh just set for him, a new place.
I do like that Watson kid they got over there, though. The receiver, that kid.
And like even the Jets have like guys like Braxton Berrios that no one talks about. Is he still there? Is he?
I think he went somewhere else.
Maybe he did go. Maybe he did sign somewhere. I wanted him badly. Maybe
the
I'm wrong
Giants
about
or
that.
somebody signed him.
I think that. I
like that kid.
What I'm saying is, I think that in every way you look at the Jets, they're a team that is just motivated. They have so many receipts to go off of. And I think with petty, Aaron Rodgers, who we know is petty as hell, I think with just I think they're just the type of team that could really rally around themselves and say, look, we have maybe the toughest division in the league. No one's betting on us. Everyone's doubting that Rodgers can become what he once was, which was a back-to-back MVP just a couple of years ago. I think this team could really will themselves to becoming a team that, legitimately could win the AFC. I'm not making my prediction yet because, like I said, I'm not sure if I'm bought in yet as to whether Rodgers really is bought in or not. I'm going to have to still wait and see for the next 3 or 4 weeks. But I am leaning more towards the side.
I think bringing Hackett over there was a big move for them, too. I think for his mental and everything and him having that trust in Nathaniel Hackett. I think Nathaniel Hackett was good with what he did with Aaron Rodgers. Wasn't a good head coach, and that was a terrible situation, if we're all being honest, too. Just wasn't cut out to be a head coach in that situation. But I think as an offensive coordinator, a quarterback's coach, his background, knowing Aaron Rodgers, and that chemistry is huge, man. This is what I'm saying. Like even with like Matt Nagy coming back and being with Pat, I think he's great for Pat and all those things. All of that stuff matters. So I think him being reunited with Hack is a big deal over there as well. So I like the Jets a lot, man. I think that's all the questions we have left, though.
Awesome.
So
I appreciate you guys, man. We went for about an hour, so
solid.
Keep the chats going, guys. Even when we're not doing this live, hit us up in the chat. Leave video comments. Just like I said, you want to share the video, we greatly appreciate that. Like it, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification so every time we go live, you will be notified. It continues to grow, guys. Our presence on YouTube continues to grow. We're not anywhere near where we want to be or where we need to be yet. So let your friends and family know about this as the Chiefs season, as the NFL season continues to get closer and closer. Hit the subscribe button, like I said, guys. Help us grow this thing because we're really trying to make this thing as official as we possibly can. We've had our guys like Chief Concerns and All Chiefed Up and other shows that are absolutely killing the game right now. We're trying to play a little catch up because as much as I love those shows, I think we have just as good of a show here at The Spoken. And with your guys' support, we can continue to climb the ladder like a lot of these other shows have, and that's what we're going to continue to go do. Trevor, we have one more order of business at 10-2. What is it called? Hold this L. Each and every episode, we finish off every episode with a series of L's in the world of sports. Whether those L's are friendly or not so friendly L's in the world of sports, we promise you, who's ever holding the L's in the world of sports deserve those L's in the world of sports. Trevor Twiddle, who's holding the L for you this week?
So, not too long ago, I gave good old Skip Bayless an L. For with the departure of Shannon Sharp and then and then them not being able to finding a backup, an immediate backup for Shannon Sharp on that show, which is obviously hard to replace. I get it. But then the show having to go on to a hiatus because they have nobody. There was the talks of Richard Sherman possibly being that. That's fallen through now. Richard Sherman doesn't want to come on that show now, as far as I'm hearing. Still haven't found one. Still haven't found a co-host for the show. The hiatus continues. They're still in very much of a search. But I will say they have some exciting news. Skip Bayless gave out some exciting news the other day. They will have a regular on Fridays. Whenever the show does come back to life. There on Fridays there will be a regular, and they will be bringing Lil Wayne on the show on Fridays. No diss to Lil Wayne. Listen, this is not a shot at Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne, as far as what he's done in his rap career, musically, the guy is absolutely a genius, and what he's done is he's arguably the GOAT. You know what I mean, as far as the rap game goes. So, no hating on this man at all. But this is where they have to go. This is where Skip has to go. He has to cling to the one person that actually likes him still. You know what I mean? With the whole chain sharing stuff with the Jordans and the him and his weird relationship with Lil Wayne and him and his wife. It's just a strange, very strange. Very unlikely couple between these guys here. It's always been a kind of an awkward situation. Even when he would come on with Shannon on there, it was always strange. Because if I'm being honest, Wayne's takes on sports are not kind to the ears. Yeah. So the show's going to have a regular on Friday. It's going to be Lil Wayne. They don't have another co-host yet. They're still in that search, but they do have Lil Wayne coming on Friday. So that's a plus. That maybe that'll be a dragnet for whoever they want to have come on there and help support the show and be another voice for the show. Honestly, I feel like that show is going to die fairly soon, if I'm being real. I know Skip Bayless is. Honestly, this feels possibly intentional from a lot of people that don't want to join him and kind of like let him fall away. And he could very easily start his own podcast and do his own thing, and it'd probably get a lot of eyeballs and ears just because of his namesake and his controversial takes and his contrarian takes. I get that, but I think we're starting to near the end of Skip Bayless. I think this is, and I know the man is old, so that wouldn't be too surprising. But we see the likes of like Stephen A. Stephen A. is arguably having the biggest peak of his career right now. His podcast is popping off. He's talking about social topics and other things other than sports, and I think it's great for Stephen A. Stephen A. is thriving right now. He's a god in this world of sports right now, sports talk. So I think we're starting to see the opposite of that for Skip Bayless. I think people are really starting to kind of turn their back on him a little bit for the way he's treated. And I think a lot of karma is finally catching up to this guy. And I think we're starting to see nearing the end of Skip Bayless's absolute his like public persona, his public appearances on shows, and being an actual host of a show. I think that's gonna start to dwindle away because Lil Wayne can't save you, buddy. You know what I mean? So, but the fact that he has to go to the links and to bring a big hip hop legend on there to possibly tease a Friday appearance, whether he's there Zoom or in person. That's L-worthy. So for me, Skip Bayless, once again, do me a solid favor, buddy, and hold this L.
I actually said that a couple days ago, and people lost sight of what I was actually saying because I said that it's gone this far and this bad that now he's got a has-been rapper doing his show on the weekend, and people are like, oh, you can't call Lil Wayne a has-been rapper.
Yeah, you're gonna spark.
Guys, listen, you're missing the actual point of what I was trying to say, but I will address it. Lil Wayne hasn't released an album in 4 years. He's not where he once was. So maybe, you could change the way I said it. Doesn't matter. That's not actually what I was trying to say. What I'm saying is it is this bad that you really want to listen to Lil Wayne go on there and growl his takes, because that's literally when he gets on there.
Hey, dude, stop the slander, bro. His sports takes are trash.
I love Lil Wayne.
His sports takes are trash.
I love the guy. He seems like a good guy.
Yeah.
I've never been a fan of his music, but that's not even the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is that literally none of Skip Bayless's actual peers want to work with the man. He's burnt so many bridges now. I think they need to. I'm with you, Trevor. I think they need to scrap the show. I think they need to get. I know that
burn it all down.
Skip's got a lot of money still left on his contract, and he's a big, heavy hitter.
Yeah.
At this point, though, man, there's so much damage done, and when the show is about embracing debate, and now you're thinking about maybe having to change the entire way you do the show.
And I want to kind of take back something I said. Now that I think about it, if he did try to go like the Stephen A route and do the side podcast thing, I don't think he has the personality to carry a show by himself.
And people don't like
he
him
needs
enough.
a charismatic co-host.
Yeah, because people like Stephen A. Like he seems to be like a good dude.
Well, Stephen A can just go.
Yeah.
Shannon Sharp could just go.
Skip
Skip
look
needs
at it, he has like
charisma
19, he has like
around
19
him.
papers of like notes, and he's like sitting here like trying to fondle through all of them. It's like, dude.
Yeah, he's a vanilla wafer. He's very, very plain. Not a lot of charisma around him. He needs to have a charismatic, more vocal and animated, co-host. That's what's made him, and he's always been like that contrarian that like says the stupid shit that kind of gets the other person triggered. You know, that's how he's based his whole career.
That's why him and Shannon worked out so well. That's why him and Stephen A worked out so well. I just think that they need to scrap it. They need to move forward with Nick Wright kind of leading the way for FS1. Colin Cowherd's still there. You know, they have some other really skilled people there.
I understand Skip already has that podcast that he does.
Yeah.
But it's not. Who's talking about that?
Right.
Is it getting the waves that the Stephen A is getting?
Because unless he's destroying LeBron
it's
or
on a
talking
downward
to Cowboys,
spiral.
people don't talk about what Skip says.
It's on a downward spiral, bro.
Yeah.
It is.
I hope by now, people understand fully and good and well that the NFL Top 100 list is an absolute joke. And I know people say, well, the players vote on it. Guys, this is proving to you, if it hasn't already, and I've been telling you guys this for years, that just because these guys play this game professionally doesn't mean they understand the game at a professional level. And I'm not dissing players, but you can't tell me under God's green earth that Lamar Jackson is the 72nd best player in the NFL.
That's crazy.
Like, that's the only. I don't even need to bring up any other ones. They have Dak Prescott scored higher than him. That's insanity. Lamar Jackson is a much better quarterback than Dak Prescott.
In every way.
And I'm not even going to sit here and debate that. But here's the biggest thing, is that the Chiefs now, defending Super Bowl champions, won 2 of the last 4, been to 3 of the last 4. They've already done player 100 to 11. They have the top 10 being released, I think, August 7th, which is a couple days from where we're at right now. Not one single Chiefs player has been on the top 90 so far. Do I need to expand? Do I really need, I mean, you're going to tell me Creed Humphrey's not one of the 100 best players in the NFL?
Hey, keep it coming.
Bolton
more material.
It might actually pay out for the Chiefs, but I'm saying, you're going to tell me right now that Nick Bolton's not one of the 100 best players in the NFL. L'Jarius Sneed? Really? Trey Pancake Papa Smith? None of these guys are in the top 100. We know that Chris Jones and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, all these guys will be in the top 10. We know those guys are safe. We know that it's clear as day because they are. They're 10 of the best players in the NFL. You're going to tell me right now that arguably the best center in the NFL for the Super Bowl winning Chiefs isn't a top 100 player. Nick Bolton, who has the most tackles through the first 2 seasons of a career in NFL history, isn't one of the 100 best players.
No big deal.
Come on, man. L'Jarius Sneed just had an historic season last year. Had over 100 tackles and I think 3 or 4 sacks, 6-7 tackles for loss. Something cornerbacks just don't do. Not one of the 100 best players. Okay. Like I told you guys, this list, don't even take it seriously. It's show fodder for them to fill time before the season starts. It's a joke, and for that, NFL Top 100, do me a solid hand.
Hold this L.
Appreciate you. Man, the chat was awesome today.
Absolutely.
I feel like we got our points across today. We really, we got to make our point, but more importantly, you guys got to take over the show for an entirety of a segment, and we could not appreciate you guys any more than we already do. But like I said, just one small minor favor. It takes 10 seconds at most. Hit subscribe on our YouTube channel. Hit the notification button.
Hit that
like button. We'd appreciate that big time. And more importantly, and most importantly, comment. Let us know what you guys want to talk about. Give us questions. Give us things to chew on, and so we can reverberate it back to you guys, what we have, what our takes are, what our opinions are, and we love hearing from you guys every single week. It's what makes this show great, and before you know it, guys, we're going to be talking about actual football games, what's going on with the Chiefs, what's going on across the league. We love talking about all sports all the time. That's what we do at the Spoken Podcast, so keep it coming. Keep coming back with us, and we appreciate all your guys' support. We could not and we would not do it without you. So for Trevor Twidwell, for the great Clay Windler that puts all this together on the back end, I am Lance Twidwell. The Spoken Podcast, episode 228, is done, finished, and finito. And until we're back here in 1 week's time to talk about Chiefs football and whatever else is going on in the world of sports for episode 229, we out of this bitch.
Later.